This is the most important line in Steins Gate 30 seconds into the first episode. To understand why this is so important, let's back up just a bit.
これは抗える者たちに対する神からの最後通告と言えよ。
What does this even mean? This could mean anything. What is he warning about? Playing with time? Playing God? What is his warning? The speech itself? The story of Steins Gate? Who's resisting? What are they resisting? Time? Fate? The looming inevitability of the universe? Think about what happens. Okabe throws himself against the universe again and again, almost driving himself mad until he realizes that instead of resisting the inevitable infinite, what he needs to resist is himself, because the universe in this exact moment literally revolves around him. Meaning, in a roundabout kind of way, he is God, the one doing the warning, the one resisting, and the one who needs to listen to this warning all at once. Deep. But consider, does this actually mean anything? No. No, not really. This is the trap of getting too hung up on individual lines, because what makes this important is actually what comes next. Did you catch that? Right, Mayuri came and called his name. Actually, Deep. Okabe stands there, tottering over the brink of sanity, caught up in his own delusions about time and space and God, and Mayuri calls his name and brings him back to reality. That is the story of Steins Gate. Sure, he's playing make-believe on the rooftop of his shitty apartment, but all of this, all of Okabe's delusions and his imaginary organization turn out to be real. It's a beautiful irony. And so is Mayuri's Stardust handshake, which she does for the very first time here. She stands right where he was, looking up at the stars and reaching out into infinity. But in Steins Gate, Okabe is the one that reaches out into infinity, and Mayuri is the one that pulls him back from it. Mayuri is the one that holds Okabe down to earth. They are the yin and yang of this story, and it's their relationship that allows him to cross over the edge of infinity. Mayuri is arguably the single most important character in the story because she's Okabe's North Star. Okabe is in love with Kurisu, but the person that ties him to reality is Mayuri. So while this is, up until this moment, just an ordinary moment in each of their lives, literally a single minute among the millions that they've lived, this 1 minute is the entire soul of both Steins Gate and the relationship between Okabe and Mayuri. It isn't the grandiose that matters to this story. It isn't all this convoluted shit about time and space and God and the universe, because none of that really means anything. It's the little moments in between. That's what matters. It's friendship that matters. What's important is this right here. This, my friends, this is how you open a story. 3-episode rule. Try 1 minute. This is why when I do analysis, I generally try to look at the overall picture and avoid spending too much time looking at individual lines. Because if we were to just look at Okabe's spiel about time and infinity here, we'd never really get anywhere. It's the big picture that matters. It's context that matters. So welcome to my new series where I, king of weeaboos and world's greatest Steins Gate fan, unpack one at a time, every single episode of Steins Gate with all the context and detail that I couldn't fit into any of my broader videos, he says, looking at his hour-long essay on each adaptation. By the way, in case you're watching this in the future and starting here, I want you to know that you don't need to watch these in order. These aren't reaction videos, they're gonna be a series of essays on Steins Gate as a whole, so feel free to jump in anywhere that piques your interest. Granted, they will still be loosely structured around what happens in each episode, so if you're watching every one of them, thank you by the way, you will probably get the most out of it in order. They should come out every week until we're finished. If this is a series you'd watch, let me know by stepping on that like button. And I could really use your help. This is going to cover a fucking lot of material and I need to decide what's important. So, if there's any questions you want answered about anything that happens in any specific episode, please leave a comment and let me know. And now that we've spent several minutes breaking down the first minute of Steins Gate, Kurisu. See if you can spot what's so important about her introduction.
ちょっとあなた。
おい、誰だお前は。
それはこっちのセリフです。
なんだと。
さっき何か言いかけましたよね。
This is their first meeting. Think about what this really means. Where did Okabe meet each of his friends? He knows Mayuri from childhood. He met Ferris through Mayuri, Daru in high school, Ruka and Moeka randomly on the street, Suzuha when she came looking for him from the future. Okabe and Kurisu never met for the first time. Their relationship was set in time from the start. Kurisu is drawn to Okabe because future him was in love with her. Okabe is drawn to her because future him killed her. There never was a beginning to their relationship. This chapter is called the prologue of the beginning and the end, obviously because this is where the story starts, and also when it ends when Okabe steps in the time machine to fool himself. The universe is infinite, and so is their love as they each stare into the void and find eternity staring back at them. They are true star-crossed lovers, their love etched into the fabric of time because the universe itself brought them together. It's why they were able to find each other just by randomly wandering around Akihabara and reuniting in front of the Radican building. Their relationship doesn't have a beginning or an end, it just is. And I think that's fucking beautiful. So let's take a step back from the looming heat death of the universe and move on to something a little less serious.
幼馴染であっても金は貸さん。お前に今人生の厳しさを教えてやろう。
Okabe is deliberately spiting his cute little friend, trying to come across as cold and proud, but is he really? He did give her the toy after all. Of course, when she says it's worth 10,000 yen, or about $100, he immediately backtracks and says to sell it, but we get interrupted before this goes any further. Would he really sell it though? Consider that 10,000 yen isn't that much money, and yet he lights up like a candle when he hears this. And consider that when eating canned oden, he cons her out of the best part.
ならちくわで手を打ってくれ。
薩摩よりはちくわかな。
よし、交渉成立だ。
And that he walks out of the beef bowl restaurant to stiff Daru with a 400 yen bill.
牛丼2人前。
え？
合わせて800円。
おかわり！
And that he keeps using Mayuri's bananas for his experiments.
これ、眉しのじゃ。
安心しろ。マユリから提供された研究費で俺が買ったものだ。
So then, who, pray tell, wrote Mayushi's on those bananas? He's clearly cheap and lacking boundaries, but those are all trivial, almost wordless things. Would he really try to take something that's actually valuable to her? I think he wouldn't. Does this look like a face that would do that? Don't answer that.
我がラボは中央通りを進み、末広町駅の交差点を蔵前通りに左折。次の信号の一本手前の路地を入った雑居ビルにある。
God, this is so much fun. Telling you exactly where to find the lab makes it so much more real. Let's actually take a sec to pull out this map here and show you where the lab is supposed to be.
我がラボは中央通りを進み、末広町駅の交差点を蔵前通りに左折。次の信号の一本手前の路地を入った雑居ビルにある。
Brilliant. A lot of people who aren't the king of weeaboos might point to the meta-narrative going on here.
わかったか？わかったなら貴様の秘密をとっとと話すがいい。
This is obviously hilarious, but does it actually do anything with this meta-narrative? Not really. It's not a story about other worlds or dreams or reality or anything like that. What it's trying to show us is its sense of self-awareness, because this isn't an anime about a bunch of degenerate weeaboos. It's an anime about a bunch of degenerate weeaboos. Each of these characters are a trope, but they're almost parodies of that trope. They work because they're all played completely ironically. Daru is a perverted super otaku, but he has so much conviction in 2D that it's almost respectable.
二次元の嫁が泣いてるぞ。
フェリスさんは別三次元でも二次元魂を宿してるお
Ferris is so far out there that not even Okabe knows what the fuck she's going on about half the time.
このフェリスには禁断の非容疑があるにゃ。
Because it's her only escape from the loneliness of growing up without a father. Moeka is able to overcome neatdom through her phone to the point where she's actually annoying. Mayuri is so pure because she clearly has some kind of condition. Kurisu is a tsundere because she's embarrassed about being a terminally online weeaboo.
貴様が生粋のアットチャンネルだと気づいたのはずいぶん前だ。違う。今更隠したところで何の意味もない。
And Okabe is somehow every single one of these tropes and subversions combined.
俺は狂気のマッドサイエンティストホーイン。今日まだ
Are you wondering why Okabe is so hilarious and so perfect for this story? That's why. So it's not the meta-narrative that counts, it's the meta-narrative where it knows it's a story and then uses this to tell the same story it was going to anyway, only better. God, this is a brilliant first episode. Not every one of these is going to be as dense as this first episode, mind you, but we've got a couple minutes left, so let's just wrap this up with something you haven't spent nearly enough time thinking about.
オカリンは本当にドクペが好きだよね。
選ばれし者の知的飲料だからな。
I don't think anyone fully appreciates how clever this is. Dr. Pepper is Okabe's favorite drink because it says doctor on it. That's shallow enough to be stupid, and this is why he wears the lab coat. Sure, he's pretty smart, but what he cares about more than being smart is other people thinking he's smart.
白衣やはり研究機関において白衣こそがユニフォーム誰も前よりも何度言ってもそれがわからないようだが
How does Kurisu react when she first sees him?
よくご存知ですね。どこか大学の研究室の方です。
貴様まさか機関が送り込んだエージェント
Yes, even Kurisu assumes he's way more impressive than he actually is because he's wearing his stupid lab coat. He's so cocky, but he's so cool that he makes you want to hit him and suck his dick all at the same time. Why did Kurisu come to Okabe's lab? This random, very clearly disturbed man walked up to her and basically molested her out of nowhere, and then even had the gall to interrupt her lecture in front of a room full of people. This would set off alarm bells in even the densest of women, and yet our brilliant heroine just casually waltzes into his lab. Why? Here's what she says.
本当は私が刺されたのを見たというのが事実なのか、セクハラ行為の言い訳なのか、その確認をしたくて来たんですけど。
And here's the real answer.
3時間ほど前ラジカンの中町博士記者会見の時
オカリン妄想はちら裏だけにしとけって
Okabe didn't just say he saw her get stabbed. He said he saw her get stabbed at Dr. Nakabachi's conference, somewhere she, a brilliant scientist with a shining reputation, would have no business being were he not her father. He didn't know she was planning to go there. No one would. So Okabe saying this is as if he had a window right into her soul. It's this uncanny feeling that something is not right with the universe, an itch that she can't help but scratch. You could say Okabe unknowingly inceptioned her into coming into his lab. But I prefer to think of it like this. I mentioned in episode 1 that Okabe and Kurisu never met for the first time. They were always together. First, she pulls him aside because future him is in love with her. And here, present Okabe's words pierce right through her heart. And this isn't the last time this happens. In episode 14, a time-living Okabe quotes something Kurisu said before.
人間は根源的に時間的存在である
ハイデガーね。私も今それを言おうとしてた。なんか気持ち悪いわね。頭の中を覗かれてるみたいで。でもタイムリープっていうのはそういうことなのかもしれない。
She's wrong. It isn't just what time living is. It isn't just what time travel is. It's what time itself is. She came to the laboratory because the universe itself willed her to. Their love isn't some fleeting young summer love. It's written into the fabric of the universe itself. That is why their love is so beautiful. And this is where Okabe first falls in love with her. Look at that smile. That goddamn smile. God, this anime is so fucking good. He didn't fall in love with her at first sight. He falls in love with her when he realizes she's not just someone who can deal with his bullshit, but best him in every single way. Ferris can outmatch his bullshit.
このフェイリスには禁断の非容疑があるにゃ。
何まさか得得したというのか
そのまさかにゃ。
But she can't do it while humiliating him like Kurisu can.
じゃあエキゾチック物質見つけてくださいよ。ホーインさん。
He realizes he's infatuated with her, unable to get this brilliant, beautiful girl out of his head, and it drives him mad. I mean, this lecture started at 3 in the afternoon, and here it's sunset in July. Assuming her lecture lasted an hour, this means he's been standing here ranting on and on about this for at least 2. She must have done a fucking number on him. Damn. Welcome, by the way, friends, to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. This is episode 2. If this is something you'd like to see more of, consider stepping on that like button. So after he storms off, we get introduced to all of the other characters. First, at Yanabashi Jinja, we meet Ukako, where we get this beautiful sequence of events.
いや 女より女らしい美少女だが男だ
I'll talk about the trans thing when we get to episode 8, but while we're on the subject of Rukaku though, let's take a sec to explain what some of Okabe's idiotic nicknames mean.
妖刀さみだれはルカ子がふさわしい使い手と感知した時に真の力を発揮する忘れるなよ
Yoto Samirare literally means Demon Sword of the Early Summer Rain.
まずはラボメンナンバー001ラボ創設者にして狂気のマッドサイエンティストこの俺Oh, in Kyoma.
Oh, in Kyoma means something like Wicked Truth of the Phoenix Institution or something. He literally doesn't explain what in is supposed to mean in Japanese, and I'm not actually sure he knows either.
名前は
ほう、in Kyoma と書いてあるだろう。お、あ、風邪。
And then this says Obo in Kyoma, which means violent drinking today, and then the sound ma. And on Okabe's phone, Moeka is listed as Senko no Shiatsushi, which means, okay, shiatsu is a type of traditional Japanese finger massage. Shi here means practitioner, and Senko means flash of light. So basically, finger massage therapist of blinding light, or something. Speaking of Moeka though.
何を撮っていたのだ
証明自分が今日どこを歩いて何を見たか
This is sad. Like she feels so disconnected from the real world that she doesn't quite believe she's there. Of course, we learned that this is probably related to her search for the IBN 5100, but is it completely? We know it's not. Why does Okabe decide to help her and bring her into his lab, even though he knows literally nothing about her? I think what he feels is this sadness. He just wants friends to make his life a little less lonely, and he senses that that's what this girl wants too. She's lonely, and he might be the only one with the power to help her. I'll talk about this more in future episodes, but this is a big part of what makes Steins Gate so great. It isn't power, greed, or any kind of temptation that is Okabe's downfall. It's his goodness. The reason he keeps using the time machine is not for his own personal gain. It's to make his friends' lives better, and that's what comes back to haunt him. All he ever wanted was for everyone to be happy. And I think that's fucking beautiful. Let's move on to Moeka's literal opposite though, which is Suzuha.
まさかバイトというのは
I love this first line. When she says she heard this was a trendy greeting, she didn't mean she picked up slang from some high schooler. She means she read that this is what people said in Japan back in 2010, and Okabe and Mr. Braun just stare at her because she's clearly using this wrong. First, it's short for Ohio, which means good morning. This is sunset. Now, some people do say Ohio at any point if this is the first time they met in the day, but here, this is... okay. She just met them. This is the very first thing she says to Okabe. Not, hi, I'm Suzuha, nice to meet you. Not yoroshiku, not even, who are you? No, basically, what's up? But not just that, because this is her first time meeting Mr. Braun, too, for her job interview, to which she's shown up in biking shorts. And instead of saying hello to the guy that's obviously the boss, she turns her back on him and says sup to some dude she's never met. And she gets hired anyway.
採用
待て、これはコントか仕込みか
そういう君は
So that's weird. And then she thinks that he, king of weeaboos, is the one using trendy slang.
緊急要請6665クーリングオフを発動させろ政府の承認そんなことを言ってる場合では
ジエンオツ
Okay, I'm not gonna explain all of the slang in Steins Gate, but I feel like I should explain this one because you'll hear it a lot. Ots is like a slangy way to say otsukare-sama, which means you're tired. Oh boy, I already know trying to explain this was a fucking mistake. Okay, so that means kind of like good work, you did well, but unlike in English, you can say this to anyone regardless of social standing. On 2chan, this is used ironically to mean something like good job, dipshit, like this.
このメリケン処女メガ
誰がメリケン処女だ
お前以外に誰がいる
はいはい童貞オツ
So you might notice that almost all of the posters on @channel are anonymous, and that's because that's how 2chan is designed. Because if you don't know who's posting, then you can't attack a person, only the information they've presented. But when someone is obviously agreeing with themselves, or obviously pretending to not be the person in question, the phrase
ジエンオツ
means you're obviously sucking your own dick. And Okabe here is obviously talking to himself, so Daru says,
ジエンオツ
hopefully that made sense. Jesus, Wow, that was a terrible idea to try and explain that. So let's hurry up to the end of the episode with the Jaonanas before I end up trying to explain what Sekai ga Yabai means. You might notice that they've done this experiment multiple times, and yet this is the first time they've noticed a time travel effect. Meaning, they've done this several times with a full bunch of bananas just because Okabe is such a fucking ass. Meaning, if he wasn't such an ass, they would have realized what was happening way sooner. God damn. If there's one word I'd use to describe Kurisu, it's curious. What is the very first thing she does after she walks into Okabe's lab? She walks right up to the Jaonana, sticks her finger in it, and tastes it. Now, it could be poisonous, it could be radioactive. She has no idea what it is. It could be dangerous in any number of ways, but she doesn't care. Or rather, she does care, but whatever sense of danger she might be feeling is completely outweighed by her sense of curiosity.
ピンセットない？
ない。
そう。
She looks at the banana, considers that it might be dangerous, asks for tools, and when Okabe tells her he doesn't have any, she sticks her finger right in. She doesn't even consider any other options, like going out and buying some, or, I don't know, using a fork and knife or something. You know, anything that's not her fucking finger. Because any other option would have taken time. Time to do, sure, but more importantly, time to think about. You know what else she doesn't do? Ask about the banana. There are 3 other people in the lab, 2 of whom clearly know more about it than she currently does, and 1 more that's actually even tasted it before. But does she stop and say, hey,
ほーいんさん。
tell me more about this freaky banana-ass looking thing. Hey, fatty, do you actually hang out with this idiot? Also, banana thing? Hey guys, what is it exactly that you do around here? What the hell did you do to make this monstrosity fuck a microwave? Radioactive? Yes? No? No, none of that. Not even, hey, what the fuck? No. She's like, this is interesting. Lick. Oh, it's gross. Fascinating. It's only when Okabe yells at her that she even considers that they might know something she doesn't. And this is why Kurisu and Okabe work so well together. They're so similar.
IBN？
古いパソコンだ。
何に使うの？
気になるか？
They're both aware that they're putting themselves, everyone around them, and maybe even the entire goddamn world in danger, but they have to know what happens. They're young, but they each have the soul of a scientist.
Because you invent something that you think is cool and it's the end of the world. I think it was Kurt Vonnegut, who, in one of his novels, he said, this will be the last sentence ever spoken by humans. It'll be one scientist speaking to the other saying, let's try it the other way.
Oh God, yeah, that's funny.
When they hack into CERN, you know what they do? They each stop for a second and consider that this might be dangerous, but each of their minds is already made up before they even open their mouths, because neither of them is willing to consider the idea of setting aside this mystery and walking away.
考えてみろ。相手はセルン。レポートは40年以上も隠されてきたトップシークレットだぞ。
じゃあ見ないつもり？
Again, like the banana, it's not at all that they aren't aware of the danger. It's just that curiosity is what makes their decisions for them. Okabe, who has been screwing around the entire day as usual, stops and tells her that she should leave because everything they're doing is highly illegal and almost certainly extremely dangerous. And her response is,
帰らないわよ。このままじゃ気になって眠れないから。
後悔しないな。
しない。
yes, her answer is let's be gay and do cyber crimes because she's curious, as if those 2 things are even slightly comparable. They aren't. Curiosity is by far the more important variable. Obviously, they share the burning spirit of a scientist, and more than anything, this is what drives them together. More than anything but the universe, of course.
ついてこい。洗濯物を回収後任務を与える。
はあ？のこのこついていくとでも。洗濯？
Kurisu goes out to find a laundromat and just happens to run into Okabe, who is busy doing Daru's laundry. And because of this, Okabe gets a chance to tell her about the IBN 5100, once again sparking that sense of curiosity. What, you really think this is a coincidence? Hell no it isn't, because if it wasn't for the universe and its mechanisms, then they might never have given each other the chance they both so deserve. They're both so headstrong, so prideful, and this is the episode where we really start to see the sparks between these two start to fly.
法王院変態狂魔。
黙れ天才変態少女
変態同士の視察戦燃える。
黙れ変態。
I love this so fucking much, and this only escalates when she's officially accepted as a lab member.
助手俺の携帯にメールを。
いつからあんたの助手になった？つうかあんたのアドレスなんて知らないし。
使えない助手名。ダルお前の携帯でいい。
Okay, so the correct response here was, what's your email address? Alternatively, the correct response for Okabe here was, here's my email address. But they're both so tsundere that they'd rather make snarky comments at each other. For all of the people who think Steins Gate is slow, they're wrong, and this is why. These two are just so funny and so believable. Every scene with them is just dripping with chemistry. Assuming this is the title I went with for this video, this is why Kurisu is the perfect waifu. And having Daru here is just the little cherry on top.
どうやらあなたたち二人とも変態みたいね。
いや
褒めてない。
Hilarious, but there's another reason Daru is here.
でもマキセ氏ならこのヘンテコの機能について解明してくれるかもよ。
いやしかし
つうか僕らだけじゃ絶対解明できないと思われ。
Yeah, think about this for a second. Daru is the mediator in this situation. The guy that goes,
マキセ氏
はい。
変態のバナナなんて食べるもんですかってもう一度お願いできる？できたら悔しそうな顔で。
is the reason Okabe and Kurisu actually managed to sit down and work together. This guy.
すごく狭いところに無理やりねじ込む。
その説明はエロすぎだろ上皇。
は？何がエロすぎ？は？橋田の変態。
Yes, this guy.
つうかそんな本よりやっぱこっちじゃね？
それはエロゲの攻略本だろ。
いいじゃん。腕組んでおっぱい肘に当ててんのよ状態とかエロすぎっしょ。ちくしょう！リア充のバカ！
This guy is somehow the social lubricant for these two headstrong geniuses. That's how stubborn they both are. Amazing. By the way, this is the third episode of my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. If this is something you'd like to see more of, step on that like button and please consider subscribing. So eventually they realize that the phone wave name subject to change is a time machine, and Kurisu runs out. You know, it's kind of weird that she denies time machines so hard. This didn't make it into the anime, but in her lecture, which is about time travel, she talks about the 10 theories of time travel, just like Dr. Nakabachi did.
タイムマシンの基本構造としては
And the reason she went to his conference in the first place was to give her father her paper on time travel. She probably thought that even her theory was purely theoretical and just a way to come to terms with her father. But standing there face to face with what is undeniably a working time machine, she realizes that she's become the very thing her father most despises, a member of a team with a working time machine. Because that was always his goal. He wanted to show the world that he wasn't crazy and that a time machine was possible. He's a bitter man with a deep inferiority complex, even growing to hate his own daughter when he realizes that she's far smarter than him. So, what do you think would happen when he hears that his own daughter is part of a team that invented a time machine by complete accident? Or if this fails like all her father's theories, what will happen to her? Will she be consumed by the ghost of the time machine, becoming bitter and hateful like her father? Whatever this is, she wants no part of it. But the beautiful thing about Kurisu is that she isn't held back by her emotions. Her driving force, the entire reason for her existence, is her insatiable curiosity. Remember that bit about the jail Nana? Even if she becomes consumed by her failure, none of that matters. Because even more painful than that is the pain of ignoring that sense of longing, that hunger to learn and discover. She's a brilliant scientist because she has an insatiable sense of curiosity that makes every second of her life the impetus for the next. Kurisu has worries and regrets, but she never wastes time being caught up in the past. She's always looking forward. That's why she came to Japan, to try and make amends with her father and finally put their past behind them. And so when Okabe tells her that he needs an IBN 5100 to decode the mysteries of the universe, what does she do?
クリス、遠く日本からメールありがとう。
She emails a colleague from America asking about this computer. That one little puzzle is all it takes to set her off. That's all. She doesn't know what it's being used for. She has no interest in Okabe's stupid conspiracy theories. But it's exactly this ignorance that makes her so interested. She can't pretend she has no interest in the mystery of the phone wave name subject to change, and if this is even just one more hint...
マキセ悪いが思い出せない。どこで会った？
秋葉原。さっき会っただろうが。
なんだ助手ではないか。クリスティーナといえば住むものを。
ティーナじゃない。
When her colleague tells her about the computer, she immediately goes looking for Okabe, and when he tells her he's heading to Yanabashi Jinja...
今どこ？
聞いてどうする？
別に。
これから柳林神社に向かおうと思ってい。
She doesn't even wait for him to finish his sentence. She just hangs up and goes straight there. Because she doesn't want to admit that she can't help it. But she can't. It's not her decision to make. Even if every bone in her body were screaming at her to stay away from that lab, she couldn't. She's far too curious. That's just who she is. That is Makise Kurisu. Before we wrap this up, if you haven't seen the Kurisu ending of the Steins Gate play, you totally should, because they adapted this one bit from one of the side stories about Dr. Nagabachi, where Fittest plays Kurisu these tapes about their two fathers chasing the dream of building a time machine, and we get to see Dr. Nakabachi looking back on all of his failures, as a scientist and as a father, regretting the pathetic shell of a man he's become. And Kurisu realizes that it's too late for him. But even if this man will never again love her, there is a man that will. Okabe. It's beautiful. If I had to pick just one thing to show you why Steins Gate is so funny, it'd be this scene right here.
すずさんにはこのライネットカードをもらったのです。ゴールド。どこ行くの？お洗濯だよ。
So this is Kampeki Shoujo, which it helpfully tells us is pronounced Perfect Garu, and below it says Face and Personality Perfect Score. And Okabe picks this up and is just utterly confused by its existence. Look at his face, he's like, what the fuck is this? Why does this exist? Do people actually pay money for these things? Bro, if you know anything about weeaboos, you'll know that they'll pay money for literally anything if you slap an anime waifu on it.
しょっちゅうおごれるほどマユシーのポケットマネーは多くないのです。ライネットソーセージも買わなきゃいけないし。
Okay, so let me really quickly explain how merchandising works in Japan. Everything is merchandise, always. You thought this was a joke? You thought this was a joke? Here they are. This is what she's talking about. These are some Ampan Man face hot dogs. That's what that's, okay. Itadakimasu. It tastes like a Japanese hot dog. Amazing. Amazing. Holy shit. And here's some Snorlax cheese bread. It tastes like regular cheese bread. This bread with cream cheese in it. But on the inside, you get a Pokemon sticker. Here we go. First fucking unboxing. Let's do a fucking unboxing for this channel, dude. What do we got Hitomoshi. We got Hitomoshi, or the candle, whatever the fuck the candle is. And you know what they had? You know what they had when I went to a Japanese onsen? Limited edition, onsen only Demon Slayer merchandise. That's what they had. That's what they had. Is this stupid or amazing? I'll leave that one to you. This is pretty fucking good. And this right here, this is what it means to be a weeaboo, brother.
なんでうちの周りには変なのばっかり集まってくるんだろうな。
I don't know, Mr. Braun. Who invited them? Is this not your store? Steins Gate celebrates weeaboo culture while wondering how it's so fucking inane at the same time. This entire anime is big. I paid money for this and I have no idea why, but I don't regret it. Energy.
なんだこの空間は。
Like the laundry scene. Is it a surprise that so many of Daru's clothes have Fetus's face on them? You thought body pillows were the be-all end-all? Let me show you something. This is the Koreaboo store where I live. You can get pillows and shit with anyone's face on it. Creepy? Yeah, a little, but that's weeaboos for you. Now look at this. They sell Korean cup noodles and tteokbokki. That's right, Japanese weeaboos think K-pop equals Korea. That shouldn't really be a surprise to you if you're watching the 4th episode of a series analyzing every single episode of one anime, But here you are. That's right, weeaboos aren't offensive because whatever cringy bullshit you do, there's a Japanese dude in Akihabara that's worse. You're welcome for the excuse, and you didn't even learn it from anime this time. Check it out, you're now slightly less of a weeaboo. Speaking of being a weeaboo though, welcome back to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. If this is something you'd like to see more of, please step on the like button. And so all of this weeaboo shit is important because hiding behind it is Okabe's true face. Like here...
作戦コード G B A C K 名付けて Zibaku!
Okay, so this joke doesn't quite translate to English, but Jibaku means suicide bomb, and so G-back, yeah, okay, you get it. By the way, if you want to see the best version of the Fitness Cup scene, you need to watch the stage play, link in the description. God, it's so awesome. Or like here.
おのれ必ずその生意気な花を明かしてやる首を洗って待っているがいいクリスティーナ
Or this.
こちらの方は
助手だそれで IBN
待てつうかそもそも助手じゃないし
俺はお前を紹介するためにここに来たのではない
10秒もかからないでしょ
It's the utter contempt Okabe shows for everyone around him. But what's important here isn't Okabe's bullshit. What's important here is, and if you watch all of these videos, you're probably going to be hearing this a lot, what comes next. What's important is what comes at the end of the episode.
いいお父さんね
そうですか
何よ
別に
Because for as much as Okabe pretends to be this huge obtuse asshole, he's really perceptive. Okabe notices what's important about this simple offhand remark from Kurisu, and she notices that he notices. It isn't just the big loud debates they have, but the little things, the insignificant details that you'd almost miss if you blink that show just how much they understand each other and really drives home the chemistry between them. Because what this tells us is that they're both hiding from their own fears and that they each understand what the other is hiding from. Kurisu hides from her feelings about her father, and Okabe is hiding from fear itself. We'll get into this more next episode. And so with nothing left to hide, when it's just the two of them, they're free to be themselves. And I think that's fucking beautiful. Speaking of being yourself though, there's a moment later, though I think only in the visual novel, where Okabe looks at Daru with respect because of the way he treats Ruka. While all the other ignorant otaku bully Ruka, calling him a trap when they realize he's not a girl, Daru doesn't give a shit because the only thing he cares about is moe, and if you have moe, why the fuck would it matter if you have a dick or not? That's what's so great about Daru. Everything can be moe to him. It isn't just an image, it isn't just a feeling. Moe, to this man, is a fucking way of life, and that's goddamn respectable. So this...
陽子シンクロトロンブースター大型電子陽電コライダーでラスボスはラージハドロンコライダータン
is maybe the most important line for Daru, or maybe it just looks like a huge hole, I don't know. Lastly, since apparently, for some reason, I had to go out and buy every single product they had on in Steins Gate, this is the veggie juice that Okabe drinks. So, yeah, what, you thought he didn't like this? You thought he didn't like this? He drank the entire damn bottle, bro. This is the moment Okabe realizes just how special Kurisu really is.
白衣やはり研究機関において白衣こそがユニフォーム誰も前よりも何度言ってもそれがわからないようだが
Because it's only when she puts this on that he realizes that she is the same as him. Why did she even put it on? It's not a real lab. It's a bunch of idiots hanging out in a dusty apartment, screwing around with a cell phone and a microwave. I said in the first episode that what Okabe cares about more than being smart is other people thinking he's smart. And for as much as she tries to pretend otherwise, this is Kurisu doing the exact same thing, putting on the lab coat without Okabe even mentioning it. She doesn't need it, it's a symbol. But it's not even a symbol here, it's a symbol tainted by association with Okabe. Daru isn't wearing one, and Okabe's a lunatic. Yet despite all this, she feels compelled to wear it anyway. But the even bigger question here is, for someone who keeps shutting down all of Okabe's bullshit,
おーいさん
why on earth does she stand here and pose with him? And the obvious answer is because she wants to. She also thinks lab coats are cool, and no matter how embarrassed she might be to admit it, the only reason she would actually agree to this is if she thinks posing like this is pretty fucking cool. And if it was anyone other than Okabe standing next to her, she might have even asked Daru to take a picture. In episode 7, when they first successfully changed the past, Okabe sends everyone home and writes an email to John Titor. Kurisu sits there reading Science-y. We'll talk about why she hasn't gone home when we get to that episode, but you'll notice she's still wearing the lab coat. Why? Everyone's left. They've stopped doing experiments hours ago, yet she hasn't taken it off. Yes, it's because she thinks it's fucking cool, just the two of them hanging out and wearing lab coats. Just like Okabe, feeling like and being seen as a scientist is just as important as the actual curiosity that drives her to question the universe around her. And so while this is extremely goofy,
こう
そうだこれぞまさに研究に身を置く者だけが漂わせる知性と恍惚のポーズ
this is the second moment where Okabe really starts to fall in love with her. He realizes that she's not this high and mighty prodigy that's too good for him. Sure, she's smarter than him, better than him, but she's also just like him in so many ways, and here's when he starts to realize just how special she really is.
ほう女子はドクトルペッパーがいける口か
本場で7年過ごしてきたからな
Really? That's why you like Dr. Pepper? Because you lived in America. That's what you're going with. Show of hands, how many people here associate Dr. Pepper with America? No one? Zero? Oh my god, she also likes it because it says doctor on the side. Jesus fucking Christ. The other important question here is, why is Kurisu hanging out here? She said she's curious about the IBN 5100, but that obviously takes time. She could have gone home and had something proper to eat instead of, you know.
腹が減ったのか
うるさいなお昼から何も食べてないのよ
いいだろう今日の俺は気分がいい美味しくいただけ
本気か
不満か
当たり前でしょ
God, I fucking love this anime. And the obvious answer is that she enjoys hanging out in the lab, because that's exactly what she was missing back home in America.
あんたのラボは幼稚だけど居心地がいい仲間だと思ってるよ前に言ってくれたでしょ私のこと大切な仲間だって
Being such a fancy scientist, she never really had the chance to sit down and be a kid. But Okabe's lab is that, yet still has the important research she can't stop chasing. In other words, no matter what she says, the lab is paradise for her.
もしかしてまゆりさんも使ったりするの
たまに
お願い二度とここではシャワーを浴びないって約束してハマりに来てよ
こっちを見るな
Oh really? You don't say. Whose idea was it to shower together with Mayuri Kurisu? Oh, it was you. And yet, Okabe has to go and ruin this. What a dick. I really like this shot of both of them just sitting there and realizing that Okabe completely ruined a beautiful moment.
これをこうしあらんでこいつがここに
And they're each just kind of waiting for Okabe to apologize, and just as it seems like he might be about to, Daru cracks into CERN.
来たの
By the way, welcome back to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. If you'd like to see more videos like this, do me a favor and step on the like button. So, after finally locating an IBN 5100 and hacking into CERN, they uncover a very uncomfortable truth that CERN is really evil. I mean, think about it. If they moved on to human experiments, that would naturally mean they've succeeded in animal experiments. But I don't think they ever did. Meaning, I guess they are just like super cartoonishly evil? Jesus, okay. And this is where we first see a deeply important part of Okabe's character. Fear.
いやもう十分だ
オカリン
飲み物買ってくる
相当ショックだったみたいね
But it's not fear for himself, it's fear for everyone else and all of his friends. And this is when the mad scientist shtick takes on its full meaning. It's because he's hiding from reality, hiding from this fear. He isn't a mad scientist, of course he's not. He's a kid and he's afraid, and the further he delves into this conspiracy, the more and more he has to hide behind this persona. Not because he thinks it's real, or because anyone else thinks it's real, but specifically because he knows it's not real. What he's facing, reality, the dark secrets dug up from the shadows of the world, is so real that he has to create this persona to put on a face and pretend it's not as real as he knows it really is. And what you'll notice is that this is exactly the same response Kurisu has to the time machine. Coming face to face with the reality that the phone wave, named subject to change, is a time machine, she runs out of the lab and hides behind denial, pretending that what she saw with her own two eyes isn't real, pretending that it's all some kind of delusional fantasy. And so when Okabe comes face to face with the dark side of the world, he runs out of the lab and hides behind this persona, pretending that it's all make-believe, all some game that he's playing with the world. And he looks into the sunset and challenges the universe, standing tall on the roof of his lab as a defiant challenge to the world, while on the inside he's quivering, afraid of the future that he can't see yet knows is coming. This is the most outrageous line in Steins Gate.
天西牛丼初めて
噂には聞いてたけど美味しいね
I can't overstate just how ridiculous this sentence is. A beef bowl is like the most common fast food in Japan, and never having had one before is a huge deal. Don't believe me? Here's a video from Japan's biggest celebrity, Roland, who is apparently eating a Yoshinoya beef bowl for the first time, having been unable to afford such a luxury when he was poor.
なんか乾燥感がやばい
Now, this stinks of some kind of weird brand deal because, there's more than one place to get a beef bowl, but this was literally all over the news last year. Yes, this was news. This, a dude eating a beef bowl, was fucking news in Japan. So when Suzuha says,
噂には聞いてたけど美味しいね
this is a goddamn outrageous thing to say. When you hear me say that all this stuff about time and space and infinity doesn't really mean anything, this is what I'm talking about. The most important things in Steins Gate are the ordinary. There's a beautifully poetic moment later in the episode that we'll talk about in a sec, but when I look back on Steins Gate, that isn't what I remember. It's the goofy shit, it's that I remember. It's the banter between all of these weebs cooped up in this shitty lab. Because it isn't about all this cerebral shit about the universe. That's only there to lift us up higher so it can bring us down lower, back to Earth. That's what I love so much about the opening to episode 3. This is such a brilliant shot. There's so much going on here. The utter mundanity of life in Akihabara, contrasted by the time machine lodged in the roof of the Radakan building. It's the symbol of Suzuha's world-changing mission to change the future, contrasted by her sitting there, bored out of her mind at a meaningless part-time job where she does literally zero work. And then this leads right into the bit about this otherworldly banana that's appeared only a few feet above her. And again in episode 5, we get this same contrast with Suzuha sitting outside the brown tube workshop, staring at her pen as Okabe and Kurisu come walking in carrying the IBM 5100 and bickering the entire way back to the lab.
言ったではないか休憩を挟みながらの方が効率的だとか
あんたこそちょっと歩くたびに小休止が必要だとか
It's a fantastical story about time travel in the universe, but it doesn't take place in the universe. It takes place in everyday life, and all these little angles show us that no matter how important their work is, blink and you'll miss it because they're just an irrelevant little corner of the world. What these constant steps back from what's going on shows us is that they're people. While Suzuha is very involved in the plot, we don't know that yet, and so the perspective we're given is that of a bystander, of someone witnessing this absurdity for what it is, an insignificant lover's quarrel in some back alley in a random part of the biggest city in the world. You get the sense that if these characters just drop dead, the world would keep going on as if nothing happened. Not immediately anyway. Okabe isn't saving the world from an imminent danger, he's saving it from a theoretical one he can't see, let alone imagine. Steins Gate never ever stops being personal. Having to choose between his best friend and his star-crossed lover, that has nothing to do with the universe and everything to do with Okabe himself.
これは世界を救うためなどではない。マユリを助けるためのミッションだ。
So, all these little scenes are a constant reminder that Steins Gate takes place among the beauty of the ordinary. And as their experiments progress and we see this,
でもオカリ実験がうまくいってよかったね。
this grim smile is Okabe realizing what he's already given up to get here. While he's happy for the success of his experiments, he knows he's paid a price for them but doesn't yet know how much. And we're shown the beauty of the everyday because that is the price Okabe pays. What we're seeing is Okabe Rintaro's precious little life. Okabe feels there's something very, very wrong about what he's doing, but he can't stop. He knows that they're doing illegal, dangerous hacking and that they should stop. But he's also realized that there is real evil afoot. But he knows that he's putting Mayuri's life in danger along with himself and all of his friends. For the first time in his life, he's presented with a true moral dilemma that has no clear answer. Does he keep going and put his friends in danger? Or does he stop and put the world in danger? He's the only one that can stop this, but can he really do anything? He didn't even invent the time machine. They built it by complete accident with a cell phone and a microwave. Maybe he's the only one that can do anything, but he spent the same amount of effort building a time machine as a colony of autistic bees did for all it's worth. But he keeps going, though he knows that the further he goes along this path, the more dangerous it is. He doesn't know if he should turn back, but he knows that the further he goes, the harder and harder it is to make this choice. Looking ahead of him, down the horizon of this dark road, he sees the endless black void, his destination the boundless infinity of the universe. It's cold and dark, and he's becoming more and more alone with every single step he takes. Dreaming of crossing the event horizon over the boundary of infinity, he's naked because he's peeling back the secrets of the universe, but the more he does, the more he becomes vulnerable and exposed and alone.
あんたは空間を移動することはできない。時間だけが延々と引き延ばされている。あんたの1秒が私には永遠となる。
宇宙の果てが逃げている。1秒後はいつやってくる。
前を向いて、たどり着いて、振り返ってはいけない。
He has to keep going because he knows there's an end to even infinity, no matter how infinite, and deep down he knows his path is the right one, but he can never be sure. There's no proof or validation to be had, only his own sense of right and wrong. So that's why it's really important that Okabe calls a roundtable meeting just to figure out what to call the demails. Because all of this exaggerated banter helps bring down the story and make sure that it never gets away from itself with this deep shit about time and space and the universe.
やるわね、岡部。あまりに単純で気づかなかった。
悔しいのか？それでも俺に30を送るその姿勢は評価してやろう。
それより D メ
You know what this makes me realize? I've never had a beef pole either. One of the problems you might run into learning Japanese is sometimes you'll encounter a new word on a menu, and because of the kanji, you'll know exactly what the word means, but you won't be 100% sure on how to pronounce it, so you just go with the mega size so as not to embarrass yourself. Ah, Tokumori, naruhodo, naruhodo. Hey, that's pretty fucking good. So, as rating this beef bowl, let's round out this episode with a return back to the ordinary and talk about that sandwich Okabe's holding. You see that? That says 30% off. Come with me and let me show you the magic of Japan. Supermarkets sell a lot of prepackaged food and bentos and shit, and depending on where you are, it might make way more sense to never buy them and just wait until 7 p.m. when they all get marked as half price, which is why you have to fight off all the grannies to get the good ones. Remember that celebrity from earlier? This is what he ate, not the premium luxury fast food, the beef bowl. Back off, Grandma, that's my goddamn chicken. If I were to pick just one line that just screams Mayuri, it'd be this one.
本当にタイムマシン。
絶対に口外するなよ。
でも店長さんにまた怒られないかな。
Let's watch this one more time and really think about what's going on here.
絶対に口外するなよ。
Why does she do this? What exactly was she doing down there while moping over the loss of the microwave? Why is she gasping for air like she was drowning? What on earth is this supposed to be? Here's the thing. This should, but doesn't, feel unnatural. It's cute and quirky and random, and it completely cuts all of the tension that was building up in this scene, and it really doesn't feel like something Mayuri wouldn't do. I have an hour-long video on why the anime is objectively better than the visual novel, so I'm not going to draw your attention to every little difference, but this is the kind of thing I mean. This is something that doesn't actually make sense. It doesn't make sense on screen, and it definitely doesn't make sense in a script. It's not something you just write in, it's something inexplicable that might actually happen in real life. Steins Gate is so good because each of the characters feels completely real, and the anime perfectly understands who these characters are and has all these quirky little bits that make it feel not like a story, but like an actual group of idiots hanging out in a shitty apartment. And keep in mind, this is how this scene starts.
漆黒の炎をまといて我が望みを満たせ。
Yet whatever it is Mayuri is doing still doesn't feel out of place. And that's because she's supposed to be special. Remember this scene?
ジューシーから揚げナンバーワンワン。
少なくともバナナの房や冷凍唐揚げの時はテレポートしなかったんでしょ？
あれお客さん？
She sees a new person in the lab, and instead of being like,
I ain't no hollaback girl, don't tell me who is that girl.
She starts counting to check whether or not there's the right number of people in the lab. And she includes herself in that number. It's the countless little details that you'd only really notice scrutinizing every single line of every single episode like some kind of lunatic, please like and subscribe, that makes Steins Gate and every single character so goddamn perfect. Like this.
でね、こっちが冷蔵庫。今日の中身は
Today. Hilarious. And this is the reason Okabe grabs Mayuri when the electrical discharge goes off.
そろそろいいんじゃないかな。
Sure, she's his childhood friend, but she's special. She's precious. She needs protecting. Kurisu, on the other hand, is the first one to realize that they're in danger and runs behind the wall when Okabe and Daru get knocked over by the explosion. I said in the first episode that every single character is a trope, but they're each subversions of that trope. This is what I mean. Mayuri is the pure, innocent girl, but she's interpreted in the only way that actually makes sense in the real world. Special. So, despite being a trope, she still feels like a real person. And that's because her character actually subverts itself one more time.
でも覗き見は悪いことなんだよね。
セルンの陰謀を暴くためだ。
それでも。
Mayuri says stuff like this because she doesn't understand what's going on. But the thing with Mayuri is that everything she says, despite her not understanding it, is actually true. And it's everyone else that's so caught up in everything about time and space and the universe that they miss the simple truth Mayuri shares.
星なんて見えないだろう。
ね、お昼でもお星様はそこにあるんだよ。
So when she acts like a mom to the other members, it's this complete cycle of each of the roles. Mayuri is the one that needs to be protected, but paradoxically, she's also the wisest character in the show and the one that protects Okabe.
マユシーはね、オカリンを追いかけてたくさんの世界線のオカリンを探し続けてきたのです。
Mayuri doesn't understand any of the big brain stuff going on, and that's because Steins Gate is never about that. It's never about any of that. It's the everyday that matters. It's friendship that matters, and it's Mayuri's job to make sure that we never forget that.
マユリはずっと前からやめるべきだと思っていたのかもしれない。
実験に夢中だった私や岡部よりもあの子の方がいろいろ見えていたのかもね。
A lot of anime use cliched tropes, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's how they're used that matters, and Mayuri is so brilliant because she somehow completely subverts this trope while never straying outside its boundaries. I said in episode 1 that Mayuri is arguably the single most important character in the story, but after watching this again, I'm almost positive that she is. So, welcome back, friends, to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. Lately, we've been covering a lot of really dense shit, so before we go back to the serious stuff at the end of the episode, I want us to just take a sec to just think about some of the fun bits a little, like Suzuha and Mr. Braun. The Braun Tube Workshop sells CRTs, and only CRTs. It has no customers. Not like only a few customers. It has literally 0 customers.
またサボりか？
だってお店退屈なんだもん。することなくて。
Suzuha never does any work. The only thing she ever does is polish her bike and eavesdrop on the Future Gadget Laboratory. So then, why exactly does Mr. Braun need a part-timer? This is the closest we ever get to an answer.
ミスターブラウンは
誰？お父さんはミスター・ブラウン。ああ、店長なら出張サービス中。
Really? He's on a house call. The dude with literally 0 customers is on a house call. Yeah, no, I don't think so. This is literally never addressed in the show, but the best explanation I can come up with is that this is all a front for his job as a spy, and I appreciate that some things are just kind of left for us to figure out. So, moving on to the end of the episode, they complete a successful D-mail and everyone goes home. Everyone except Kurisu. Why? Partly because, as Okabe says, she's lonely staying at her fancy hotel with nothing to do all by herself but all the stuff that's in this doujinshi, and partly because she's worried about Okabe. Something's very clearly wrong with him, and you know, she likes him. And partly, again, because she thinks hanging out and wearing lab coats together is fucking cool. You'll notice that even though they've stopped doing experiments, she's still wearing it. Remember that pose? This is the reason she agreed to do this. She always wears the lab coat in the lab, even when they're just hanging out. But I think the main reason Kurisu stays behind is because she's curious. When Okabe says he'll explain everything later, to her, that's not good enough. She needs to know. When there's a loose thread in the universe, she can't just walk by and ignore it. She has to tug on it until it unravels. That's just the kind of person she is. That's why she says this.
どうしてもここにいたいのならば、邪魔をせず静かにしているのだな、ザ・ゾンビ。
その呼び方が一番カチンとくる。
If Okabe not explaining the time machine is a little thread, what the fuck is her own death? It's the riddle of the universe sitting like a carrot in front of her face for her to chase and never ever catch. This is why she hasn't left. To hear this, she has to know something, anything. This is one of the most brilliant scenes in the story because the entire soul of it and every single character is wrapped up here with Okabe and Kurisu sitting alone in the lab and every single one of his friends emailing him in a friendship speedrun.
あ
This right here is what Steins Gate is really about.
じゃあね。
岡部、にやけてる。
Is Ruka really trans or just gay? If you watch the anime, the answer seems pretty straightforward.
実は僕女の子になりたいんです。は？
But there is a little more to this story. I talked about this briefly in my FAQ video, but as this is apparently the biggest debate in Steins Gate, I want to get really in depth and clear up all the misconceptions here. First, here's what the visual novel translator says. Basically, Ruka is just gay and only wants to have a sex change because he's in love with Okabe, who doesn't care if he's a boy or a girl, and he's just like this because he had a whack upbringing and refers to himself as Boku like a boy would. Now, I don't want to criticize him too much because he obviously did a really good job with the translation, but if you give this 5 seconds of critical thought, you'll realize that this doesn't make any fucking sense because literally none of what he said points to Ruka being trans or not. First, calling himself a boy and using Boku doesn't mean shit. This should be obvious, but he naturally only uses pronouns when speaking to other people. He says Boku because that's how he thinks he should portray himself, having a dick and all, not because that's how he sees himself. A pronoun is a choice, not a mirror. And I really shouldn't have to say this, but he doesn't bring up wanting to be a girl anywhere else in this story because normal people don't just run around saying they want a sex change, like what the fuck? He brings it up when it's relevant, Jesus. Next, about his father making him dress up in girls' clothing. This doesn't make him trans or not either because while it may or may not have been his choice at the start, the fact is that he says he feels more comfortable in women's clothing right now. So the question is this just trauma or his real feelings? The answer isn't clear because he's not obviously just gay. I mean, literally just look at him. He's extremely effeminate. He doesn't just say he wants to be a girl, he basically is in every single way. Sure, he had a whack upbringing, but that didn't give him this voice or this face. It's not at all strange that someone would want their genitals to match their appearance, dude. This line...
でもすみません。
なぜ謝る？
だって僕はこんな顔なのに男だから。
is from when he first met Okabe. He was not in love with him at this point. But, and this is a pretty big but, let's not completely throw the translator's interpretation under the bus here because nothing I just said makes him trans or not either. And that's actually what I want you to take away from this, that we don't know. And there's arguments for both Ruka being trans or just gay. The only thing we know 100% is that he's in love with Okabe, and this is at least part of why he wants to be a girl. So we definitely shouldn't ignore this. But looking at everything else he says and does and is,
こんな顔なのに男だから。
I'm not completely convinced that's the only reason. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to consider him either gay or trans, but in my opinion, the point is that he's supposed to be confused about his gender, and I find it weird that everyone on both sides of this is so allergic to the idea that someone might not have a clear idea of what gender they are. I guess people, especially trans people, want to see more trans characters in fiction, and maybe I'm not totally qualified to speak on this, but I think someone who's confused is at least as, if not more valid for this. For all those people though, there's a bit in the visual novel where Okabe says that Ruka could be a trans icon with how he looks, so that's fun. Keep in mind this is just Okabe's personal thoughts though. For everyone else, I don't know. I think this is mostly just them taking the translator's misinterpretation at face value, so I'm definitely not gonna go around accusing anyone of transphobia or anything like that. But really, do at least think about what the translator is actually saying before blindly agreeing with him, because it's really stupid. So, now that that's out of the way, I want to use this opportunity to talk to you about fanservice. Yes, you, anime, I know you're watching. But first, speaking of fanservice, welcome back to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. If this is something you're into, do me a favor and step on the like button. Steins Gate is the gold standard for fanservice because it never gets in the way of the story. It's always very, very deliberate, and the only time it really drops its pants and digs out the fanservice is for this extremely funny, heavily ironic scene with Ruka.
ほら服を脱ぎ脱ぎして。あ、そんなところ触らないで。わかった。僕
すごくユリです。
違うな。ルカ子は男だ。
ということはさらにけしからん。
In fact, the only time the plot sexualizes the characters, the anime goes out of the way to hide it so it doesn't get in the way of the story. In Ferris's introduction, her boobs naturally jiggle here, it'd be weird if they didn't, but not only is she dressed super conservatively, like you'll notice, literally every other character is, her dress is dark and the camera actually angles away from them so you might not even notice. Later, we see Kurisu with her pants off in her hotel, and it would have been so easy to sexualize her here. In fact, the movie does exactly this, and I'm pretty sure this scene is the entire reason the movie exists. But the anime doesn't. It only shows us enough to show her being alone and vulnerable in her private life. And then there's when Okabe walks into Mayuri and Kurisu taking a shower. This is how a normal anime would have handled this. And this is how Steins Gate handles this. Okabe's gaze here is way less sexualized. Again, this scene would be so very easy to sexualize. But it shouldn't be, because it's one of the tensest, most serious scenes in the story. Sexuality never once crosses Okabe's mind here, so to sexualize it would take us right out of his head. When he's sitting there embarrassed, his only emotion is relief, and seeing them naked would just distract from that.
おかりん、マユシーはとっても悲しいし恥ずかしいのです。
たく、ちょっと岡部。
おかりん？
To show you what I mean, here's the scene in the visual novel.
おい、大丈夫か？
びっくりした。ヒヤヒヤさせないでくれ。
いいから出てけ！うお！
Significantly less effective. I know I keep bringing up the visual novel, but the anime really is just that much better because it respects each and every scene in the story and understands how they're supposed to be played. Whereas the visual novel is a little too keen to lean into that side of visual novel culture. Although, if this sounds appealing to you, you should watch my video on the eroge that inspired Steins Gate, saved visual novels, and basically changed anime forever. I'll put a link at the end of the video. Going back to the Ruka bit, I just want to add that I love the little history lesson on pagers, even though they were literally only like 10 years obsolete by the time this was written. Like, people must have known what pagers are. What the fuck? That's kind of spooky. I wonder if there'll ever be a time when the idea of cell phones is gonna be obsolete. Jesus, what a scary thought. Lastly, and this isn't necessarily relevant to the anime, but it's something I forgot to mention in my stage play review, link in the description, so I might as well talk about it here. Gravure modeling is like a really common thing for actresses in Japan to gain exposure. All of the actors in this play have published swimsuit or underwear photo books. All except one. That's right. The only actor who has never appeared anywhere in her underwear is the actor for Rukako. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. Is it Ms. Uedarie-san, if that's even your real name? Hot! What a brilliant casting decision. Link to the full play in the description, by the way. Is it offensive that I'm using Rukako as a chance to talk about sexy Japanese girls in their underwear here? So the big philosophical question that Ruka's character brings up in this episode is this.
私の人生はたかだか18年だけど、改変なんかしたくない。失敗したことも含めて自分の人生なんだから。
This is one of the main messages that Steins Gate wants you to take away. What right do we have to change the past? What kind of person would that make us? Because time, our past, each of our lives up until now, is exactly how it should be. You are you because of the choices you've made and the life you've lived. You are the sum of your experiences. All of your successes, all of your failures, everything good, everything bad. Every time you embarrassed yourself at high school prom when you tripped and your pants ripped and everyone saw your ass and you had to call your mom to come pick you up. All of it is part of you. Every character gains a gift from the time machine, but gives it back again when they realize that it isn't how things should be. It'd make them happier, yes, but it wouldn't be right because it isn't what made them the person they are today. That's why Ruka still uses Boku when he turns into a girl. Oh shit, it gets deeper! Because what made him who he is his experiences, all of which are from his past life, not his current one, and no matter how much he wants to stay a girl, no matter how much happier it would make him, he knows that this life isn't really his, and because of that, it would make him miserable.
混乱していたのは俺の方だった。そんなことはどうでもいい。俺はようやく気づいた。俺は俺であり、ルカ子はルカ子。
Because to take back anything is to take back a part of yourself. So don't you dare let any part of you go, because while pants can be replaced, experience can never be. Was Moe really brought to Akihabara by a 17-year-old girl in a cat-made outfit? No. The answer is obviously no. But you might still be curious exactly how Akihabara came to be. First, what does it actually look like in real life? And for that, we need to look at the centerpiece of Akihabara, the giant Narakan building. So it's a hilariously massive coincidence that this little-known indie actor named Kirsten Dunst actually did a bit dancing around in front of this building in a schoolgirl outfit, literally the same year Steins Gate came out. Do you want to see it? Do you want to see it? Oh my god, I thought you'd never ask.
I've got your picture of me and you. I've got your picture. I've got your picture. I'd like a million of you all on myself. I want a doctor to take your picture so I can look at you from inside as well. Turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese. I really think so. Turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese. I really think so.
So that was awesome. But where did all of this actually come from? Well, you might remember they mentioned that Akihabara used to be an electric town in the 1980s. So what changed? How did this town go from selling electronics and computers to, whatever the fuck this is? Well, I mean, think about it. Who used computers in the 80s? Basically, only turbo nerds. And what kind of people like hentai? That's right, everyone does, obviously. But who liked it back then? Still everyone, obviously. But who actually paid money for it back then? And there's our answer. Well, that was a lot simpler than I thought it'd be before going into this. Akihabara became Akihabara because of hentai. Okay, fair, but was there like any specific impetus for this hentai boom? Well, according to Japanese Wikipedia, the first big change, and this may or may not surprise you, was the release of an anime called Neon Genesis Evangelion. Yes, Evangelion was actually so popular that everyone came to Akihabara to buy pornographic Evangelion doujins. That last part is speculation, but I mean, come on, why else would they come all the way to Akihabara? To buy VHS tapes? Mecha kits? Yeah, I don't think so either. The other important thing you need to know is that buildings don't really last forever. And by pure coincidence, around this time, a lot of the older buildings were falling apart, making room for new, better stuff as soon as the opportunity presented itself. The first big trigger was Evangelion, and the second big trigger for the moe boom, and this, again, may or may not surprise you, was AKB48. AKB... Oh, that's right, AKB is short for Akihabara. So basically, Evangelion sold a lot of hentai, and then they made an idol group celebrating Evangelion hentai, and then everyone went nuts, and now we have Steins Gate. Does that sound right? Sure, let's go with that. But maybe we should look at the prehistory again. I mean, Phyllis literally says that her family basically owns Akiba. Is there any truth to that?
フェイリスの家はここら辺の大地主だったんだにゃ。じゃあもしかして秋葉って そういうことにゃ。
Well, besides the random plot hole where her father was apparently poor when she was a child, apparently the entire area burned down around 1870, so when they rebuilt it, they erected a jinja for 3 firefighting gods that people mistook as a jinja for the firefighting god they already worship named Akiha. And then because of this, the surrounding area started being called Akibagahara and then later Akihabara, which sounds like a confusingly random rearrangement of syllables if you don't understand Japanese. So, if I'm reading this right, this actually means that Akihabara was a mistake. Oh man, that's hilarious. So what about between then and becoming an electric town? Oh, something about a war in black market hentai, who really gives a shit? Let's move on to this.
そちらの状況を伝える。あの女切りやがった。
そりゃ切られるっしょ。
クリスっていう名前、女子の分際で。幸いでございます。
No, not that. This.
やっぱりメールはしなくても。
フェリス。
I talked about this at the end of last episode, but I really want you to take away this idea of destiny. Every character, deep down, knows how things are supposed to be, and they each run away from the reality that they know they have to face. Ruka, the reality that Okabe will never be attracted to him. Suzuha, the reality that she has no idea where to even begin looking for her father. Moeka, the true face of FB. Kurisu, that her father will never again love her. Okabe, that, like it or not, every single one of these burdens lies on his shoulders. And so here, this little bit of hesitation, it's literally a couple seconds, but it adds so much to her character. Because what this says, what this tells us, is that Fairness knows that she's running away from reality. So when she agrees to change the world back, this isn't coming out of nowhere. This isn't just because Mayuri dies. It's that she knows deep down that this isn't how things are supposed to be, and that her life is her life, bruises and scratches all, and that no matter how hard it is, it's made her into the person she is today. And what Okabe starts to realize sending this D-mail is how very, very lucky he is. Because these D-mails could have changed anything, something even unrelated to the D-mail. It's just pure chance that that never happened. Because if he didn't know what changed, then there's no way he would have ever been able to undo it. And slowly, he realizes the danger of playing with time. And this is why he feels like giving up. Because even if he does succeed at undoing each D-mail, who's to say he doesn't accidentally screw something else up in the process, and in trying to undo that, screw something else up, and so on. With Ruka, he assumes that it didn't work and something else changed. But with Fairness, she literally doesn't even know what she sent. Of course, she eventually remembers, but what about Moeka? He has to figure out what went wrong by himself. Playing with time is serious business, and it's a miracle he got through it unscathed. Okabe, throughout Steins Gate, keeps fighting against time and fate, and at the end he decides that there is no cheating destiny. He realizes that there's an order to the universe and that some things are just meant to be, and destroys the phone wave named Subject to Change and the Time Leap Machine. If there's one thing I want you to take away from these videos, it's that Steins Gate isn't about time travel and the universe. It's about friendship and loneliness and the beauty of the everyday. But if there's a second thing I want you to take away, it's that basically everything in the story is fated to happen. Think about how many weird coincidences had to go into Suzuha meeting her father. Suzuha's only clue about her father was this time machine offline meetup, and Okabe unknowingly made her father miss this event so he could come to the lab party being thrown to make her feel better about missing her father. Is that not completely whack? But here's the thing, if she'd actually gone and seen Daru, would she have recognized him as her father? She's already met him after all, and had no idea that they were even a little bit related, let alone father and daughter. Instead, Okabe stops her father from going to this meeting, stops Suzuha from going to the past, and brings them all together at this hilariously ironic party. And because of this bonding, they all become a little bit closer and eventually learn who her father is when they send her off in a time machine to 1975. In other words, Okabe preventing Suzuha from meeting her father is the reason she was able to find her father. This is something I'm gonna keep bringing up, and something I don't think anyone talks about enough. Fate plays a huge role in the events of Steins Gate. It's never really talked about, and obviously Okabe and Kurisu don't believe in fate, at least not right away. And obviously, the concept of fate comes into play when Okabe runs into Divergence and finds things he can never change. But I want you to think about fate differently. Remember how I said Okabe and Kurisu never met for the first time? That's not Divergence, because that's not a sequence of events that happens. It's a sequence of events that already happened, that never didn't happen because it's written into the fabric of the universe itself. Divergence is what happens, but fate is how things are meant to be. And like Okabe and Kurisu meeting, Suzuha finding her father is something that's just meant to be. It doesn't look like it. After all, they're both lab members. She came back in time to find Okabe and meets every single one of the lab members, so it's pretty obvious that Daru is the #1 contender here. But how it actually happens in the story is a series of extremely huge coincidences. It didn't just happen because it couldn't just happen. She had no idea where to find him. The only clue she had is that her father might be at this meeting, and the only thing she knew about him is that he's very clearly male. Well, that certainly narrows it down a lot. A lot of things had to happen just right for this search to actually come to fruition. Think about Suzuha's pin. Not only did the pin, like Okabe and Kurisu's relationship, not have a beginning or an end either, it's a literal sign that things aren't how they're supposed to be. It's missing the people who never became lab members in this world line. Quiz time. What's wrong with this? That's right. This doesn't make sense. It's made up of the lab members' names, but it's missing a few. Why would it be missing them? If you didn't know about them, you wouldn't leave them blank, you would not write them in the first place. The only way this would happen is if the creator knew there were 8 lab members, but didn't know their names. But then, why would they know they're supposed to be lab members, or how many lab members there are supposed to be? Or, most significantly, that Suzuha is specifically lab member number 8. This actually just doesn't make sense. How on earth would this happen? And the answer is obvious. The pin wasn't created by a person, it was created by the universe. This is something Okabe might do, but he didn't make the pin. He only made them because Suzuha brought it back from the future. There isn't a world line where the pin didn't exist in the first place. It's missing members not because Okabe didn't fill in the blanks, but because the universe didn't. The pin is literally a sign from the universe nudging them in the right direction. So, when Suzuha says,
やっぱりさ、父さんとは会えない運命なのかも。
it's the exact opposite. Now, again, a lot of what happens is the result of Divergence, like Mayuri dying. But what I really want you to take away from this video is the difference between Divergence and Fate. The pin, Okabe and Kurisu's relationship, these aren't things that are just made to happen. These are things that have to happen. No one made them happen. They never didn't happen in the first place. That's the difference. Welcome back, by the way, to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. If this is something you're into, do me a favor and step on the like button. So let's apply this idea to something you might have just glossed over. The phone wave, name subject to change. Here's a question. How exactly did they invent the phone wave? How do a TV and a cell phone and a microwave create a time machine? Obviously, science shit, but what specifically brought this into existence? The answer is, like the pin, nothing. It's not just a massive coincidence that this thing exists. It's too big of a coincidence to be anything but fate. And that's because they didn't make the phone wave either, the universe did. And you'll notice that this means that all of the events of Steins Gate were fated to happen. The phone wave, name subject to change, was created by the universe. CERN took it from the lab and used it to create their time machine. Because of this, the Future Gadget Laboratory created their own time machine and sent Suzuha back to 2010 to create a future without time machines. What does this mean? It means that no one, at any point, was ever actually the first one to create a time machine. They might have tried, Kurisu might have written the paper on time machines, she might have improved on the phone wave, name subject to change, with the time leap machine. Daru might have made one in the future. But as for actually realizing the existence of time travel in the first place, that is strictly a product of the universe itself. So you might notice that this actually leaves the problematic question, wait, if all of the events of Steins Gate were fated to happen, what's the point of the story? And this is something you'll have heard me say more than once if you've seen my other videos, but I'll say it again here. Stories are never, ever, 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 ever about the things that happen. Stories are about the characters things happen to. Whether or not the events of Steins Gate are fated to happen is irrelevant. Whether or not the characters even have free will is irrelevant. It only matters that they think they do. The reason Steins Gate keeps showing us this realistically mundane life in Akihabara is because that's what's important. For each of the characters in Steins Gate, their only guiding principle is what they know is right, what they know is meant to be. Fairness gives up her father because she knows this carefree life with him isn't really real. Ruka gives up her vagina because she knows it's a gift she isn't supposed to have. Moeka realizes she's been living a lie and goes to meet her truth. Kurisu stays with the lab because she feels like that's where she really belongs. Okabe chooses Mayuri over Kurisu because Mayuri is the most precious thing in the universe, and her death means something about it is fundamentally broken. And what Mayuri feels is all of this. The characters, deep down, all know how things are meant to be. And that's because at every step of the way, they are being guided by the hands of fate. They're being guided by the universe itself. But all of this stuff, time, fate, the universe, doesn't really matter. Steins Gate is about a bunch of kids who just wanted some friends. And I think that's fucking beautiful. When Okabe calls Ruka a boy, Kurisu makes him sit on his knees for almost an hour. But when he peeks in on her and Mayuri in the shower, she barely does anything. Why? Well, what happens right before this?
親子のわだかまりを解消してやる。
何それ？あんた自称マッドサイエンティストでしょ？空気読んでどうするのよ。
Facing completion of her greatest achievement, the time leap machine, Kurisu finally has to come to terms with the two sides of herself. On one, Christina, the cold-hearted, prodigal, perverted genius, experiment-loving girl. But on the other, Kurisu, this lonely girl who only wanted to be loved by her father. And what she realizes is that one of these sides is winning, and if she doesn't reconcile them, she could lose the other forever. And she knows which it is because it was never a choice. Even if she wanted to, she couldn't stop herself from building the time leap machine. She's too curious, too driven by her hunger and her thirst for knowledge and discovery to let it go for even a second. And so, feeling this inner conflict, she turns to the only person she can, her only real friend, and spills her heart because she knows that he's the only one in the world that truly understands her. And he knows that she understands him. Because right before this, he comes in to find her browsing @channel, exposing her darkest secret, and what does he do? He acts literally exactly the same as he always does.
なら、VIP でアンカーを出すことの方がいいというのか。
意味がわかる自分が憎い。
So it isn't that he tells her he'll go with her to Aomori. It's that this is exactly what she was expecting him to say, but nervous that he wouldn't.
言っとくけど、もう決定だから、無理やりでも連れて行くからな。
望むところだ。
And now that he's said it, there's nothing he can do to dampen her mood. Not even... So when she tells him about her father, he tells her he'll go with her to Aomori, and what she realizes is that what to do was never even a question to him. There aren't any other options. There's only one choice, and it's the choice of Steins Gate. What she realizes here is not only does he understand her, and she him, but that he's someone she will never have to hesitate to rely on, and that makes him more than a friend to her. So it's very, very important that this happens before the scene where Okabe walks into them in the shower. Because if you remember from episode 5...
もしかして、まゆりさんも使ったりするの？
たまに。
お願い、二度とここではシャワーを浴びないって約束して、ハマりに来てよ。
こっちを見るな。
Whose idea was it to get in the shower together? Kurisu's? I see. Is this what we in the biz call ironic foreshadowing? Because this is after the point where she wants him to see her naked. I mean, not like this, obviously, Jesus fucking Christ, but if this happened any earlier, she might have actually not come back to the lab. When he goes out shopping for the lab party, she's already upset from the pudding thing, but instead of being angry, she tells him to buy 2 puddings and includes a message about Aomori, because she can't even stay mad at him. How could she? She's in love with him. And because of that, Kurisu is able to give him the benefit of the doubt, because she looks at him and she doesn't see embarrassment like she should.
風呂場を覗いた上に買い出しも全部忘れてきたって？ほんと信じらんない。ちょっと岡部。
Instead, she finds relief, which should be the literal opposite emotion, no matter why he looked into the shower, right? Let's go back to the other important scene in this episode.
そのマユシーが1週間前に飛んで1週間をやり直したとするでしょ。マユシーはお話ししたことを覚えてるのに、オカリンは全然知らないってことになるの？だとしたらね、なんだか寂しいね。
俺が？
マユシーが。
Time travel means loneliness, not just for Okabe, but Kurisu. Okabe plunges into a universe that only he can remember, and for Kurisu, the time machine means severing her remaining hopes of a relationship with her father. For them, the time machine can only mean loneliness, but it's a loneliness they can't help but choose. Kurisu can't help but build the time leap machine because she is, exactly as Okabe says, an experiment-loving girl through and through. And Okabe knows this because he's exactly the same, unable to stop himself from using a time machine and peeking into CERN and the doors of fate. When Okabe realizes that CERN has a line to the lab and that they know everything, this is where he really starts to get scared. The lab having a direct connection to CERN, the threat email, Akihabara changing, his life is disappearing in front of his eyes, and it feels like it's all getting closer and closer. What is? Fate, I guess. So as he gets closer and closer and peeks over the edge, it's Mayuri that pulls him back from it, and he decides to not use the time machine.
実験はしない。このことは世間に公表する。
Again and again, we see that even though Mayuri doesn't understand much, what she understands is the human heart, and that is the most important thing in Steins Gate. So here, Kurisu is the one that realizes something's wrong with Okabe, but Mayuri is the one that feels it. Kurisu is the brains of the lab, but Mayuri is the heart. She doesn't say it, she maybe doesn't even realize it, but she feels it. And Okabe pays the consequences. Next time, Psych! Bet you thought I was gonna say we talk about that scene. Next time, our comic relief episode where we explore Kurisu's horrible sound in a brand new episode of Wanging with Weeb.
サラダと言ったよな。
そうよ。グレープフルーツのサラダ。
ならなぜ納豆とひき肉がカゴに入ってる？
いろいろ合わせてみると美味しいのよ。グレープフルーツの酸味があるから何合わせてもいけるし。
いや、いけないだろう。
Hey, what's up, weebs? Welcome back to Wanging with Weeb, where this week we're gonna be taking a look at Kurisu's salad from Steins Gate. I was gonna make Kurisu's pie, but if I'm being honest, I have no idea how the hell that was supposed to be eaten. All we see is 2 unpeeled apples boiling in a pot of what I can only hope is cinnamon and sugar, which doesn't sound like the worst, but also doesn't sound like anything. So instead of eating Kurisu's pie, we're gonna be tossing her salad. Now, I'm pretty sure we're not actually told all of the ingredients, but we are told it contains grapefruit, ground beef, natto, and cilantro, and then Kurisu uses rakyo as a substitute for radishes. I think it'd be more in the spirit of Kurisu to use both, by which I mean I also couldn't find radishes, so I'm using daikon instead. Also, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that the other joke here is that rakyo, which is an onion type food, is usually pickled, so that's what we're going with. Okay, so while you watch in agony as I waste a lot of perfectly good food, let's talk about what's probably the subtlest joke in the entire show.
すでに完成したものがあるではないか。しかも 50% オフだ。
出来合いのもの買ってもつまらないでしょ。まったくこれだから実験にしか興味のない男はダメなのよね。
If you watch my episode on Kurisu, you'll realize that this is funny because she's the one that only cares about experiments, and in fact, that's exactly what she's doing right now. Her thought process here is literally, wait a second, what would happen if you mix these flavors together? Her brain doesn't actually get so far as the outcome because she's so focused on the experiment. Hilarious. One more thing, you can probably imagine what's wrong with this, but I'm realizing most of you have probably never had natto before, so let me describe it to you. It's very sticky, mostly flavorless beans. If you ever work as an assistant English teacher in Japan, you'll probably eat this for school lunch at some point. They give you bonito and soy sauce to eat it with over rice because it has so little flavor. It's basically just a sticky lump of bean-like things, so I want to say, well, this probably isn't going to be as horribly off-putting as you're thinking. It's not like this is going to turn out anything resembling good. Alright, enough stalling. Time to give this a taste and... Oh god! Oh, that smells awful. And, well... Okay, instead of just telling you what this tastes like, it'd be funnier if I use this to explain the other really subtle joke in this episode.
楽しそうだな。
楽しいよ。ピザも美味しかったし、すずさんとクリスちゃんも楽しそうだし。
Why did Mayuri only mention pizza? Wow. That was one of the worst things I've ever eaten. Holy shit, that was bad. What the fuck? Oh my god. Okay, maybe we can give her the benefit of the doubt because, you know, we don't know all of the ingredients, so, and while I'm assuming the grapefruit and the cilantro is kind of like supposed to act as the salad dressing, you know, it could have included something like lettuce and salad dressing, so, you know, why don't we just, you know, just give her the benefit of the doubt. No. Fucking no. Okay. Alright, enough of this! Now, I have no idea where to even fucking begin making a good version of this because it's written to be literally as horribly awful as possible, but somehow Babish always manages to do this, so I guess I have to at least try. So I looked up grapefruit salads with ground beef, and I'm gonna be honest, this is gonna be kind of a stretch. The only way I can even sort of imagine involving as many of these ingredients as possible is by making some kind of steak salad. And this would be a lot easier if we didn't also have cilantro, but to me, this says we need to make a fruit salsa, which is probably not the stupidest idea, I think. Normally, this involves just a single kind of fruit, but grapefruit is pretty strong, so to kind of balance out the flavors a little, we're gonna add some pineapple. So, grapefruit, pineapple, and as per salsa rules, lime, juice and zest, some finely chopped red onion, and of course our cilantro. And we're just gonna let the flavor sink in for a few hours before we work on our steak. Normally, salsa tends to be pretty wet and juicy, what with being a bunch of fruit thrown into a bowl and all. Never throw this out because this is where all your flavor is gonna be, and you want your salsa to just kind of soak this up. But since we're doing steak, I actually have a way better idea. I used to work in a restaurant that did an Asian steak salad and used some kind of yogurt-based marinade, and I don't actually remember what was in it, but I'm at least pretty sure this is a good idea. And since we somehow need to incorporate fermented soybeans in here somehow, we're gonna be using soy sauce instead of salt as seasoning. This makes sense, shut up. Okay, so about 8 hours later, and we're ready to start cooking our steak. And you'll immediately realize that having only ever cooked steak on a grill, which I don't actually have in Japan, I forgot a really important step in this yogurt marinade, which is drying off our steak, because otherwise this thing isn't gonna develop even a little bit of color in our frying pan. So I'm just draining the excess yogurt and then not realizing that this is where I should have stopped to pat it dry with a paper towel, but fuck it, whatever, it came out fine. So lastly, we're just gonna toss together some lettuce with carrots and baby tomatoes, along with a really simple soy sauce, rice vinegar, and sesame oil dressing before completely forgetting about the fruit salsa we made and almost eating the entire thing without noticing. But it's good that I did, because now I know what it tastes like with just the marinade and no salsa, which is honestly pretty good. It's tender and juicy, and while I couldn't really taste any grapefruit, I did get a hint of lime and cilantro, which was nice. I don't know if I'd make it again, but I definitely wouldn't hesitate to eat it again. Okay, so salad attempt number 2 with the sad remnants of our steak topped with some of our salsa. And now, after an alarming amount of bullshit, we can finally answer the question, how does the good version of Kurisu salad taste? And for that, let's move to Facecam Weeaboo.
So this was basically all on fucking purpose, like a genius. You know, that's not bad. That's not bad. The steak is really nice. But I'm not sure how well steak goes with grapefruit. The marinade, that was a good idea. I don't know about the grapefruit. The grapefruit could probably use some reconsidering. The grapefruit pineapple salsa. Yeah, that's really good. That is really fucking good. I don't know if I'd eat it with steak again. So, Kurisu salad, yes, no. Let's say no. Let's give this one a big no. Yeah, okay.
If you enjoyed watching my suffering, by the way, stepping on the like button would go a long way in easing that suffering. Alright, so now that we've conclusively decided that this was a huge waste of time, let's just give up and get one of those pizzas Daru ordered. I was gonna get the exact same pizza Daru ordered, which is pepperoni, bacon, olives, and green peppers, but it turns out, Domino's Japan just doesn't have olives, so instead, I got the Domino's special, close enough, I guess. As we dig into this, let's talk about something that might sound really stupid to you. Domino's is the top tier pizza restaurant in Japan. How did that happen? I have no idea, but they're the ones with all the cool pizzas like fish and chips or butter chicken and shit. I'm here for it. Surprisingly good. Now, I have to admit, it doesn't quite live up to pizza from back home where I'm from in Canada, but hilarious, right? Yeah, I could really use a proper za. That and chips. So I also wanted to try one of the Domino's pizza rice bowls. I guess we're just a food review channel now. How does pizza and rice mix? You know, that's not terrible. Honestly, I might eat this again. I mean, I have no idea why they have this. It tastes exactly like a Domino's pizza, only with rice. But, you know, whatever, I guess. What's the best episode of Steins Gate? A lot of people say 23, and while it's obviously amazing, I feel like that's just because it's the big payoff at the end. This, in my professional opinion, is the best episode. Every part of this feels connected. The time leap machine, the disappearance of Moeka, Stardust Handshake, his simple life in Akihabara being whittled away bit by bit as he plunges deeper and deeper into the secrets of the universe, and the useless toy they built for the lulz being the very thing that allows Okabe to use the time machine and leap into the past is the little cherry on top. It's masterful how well this anime transitions from goofy to unfathomably dark in a matter of seconds as he wonders exactly where it all went wrong. And as Kurisu gets shot and the OP plays, it just hits different. It just hits different, okay? Oh my god, look at this. Look at it. Does this not hit different? Fuck. Oh my god. All this stuff about time and fate, it all falls into place here. It isn't about the universe. It isn't about some world-shattering conspiracy. It's to save his best friend. It's the utter simplicity of the plot that's why it's so good. That's why we've been talking about sandwiches and juice and trading cards and shit. All of it is to make it not just as real as possible, but as mundane as possible. Because that's what's important. That's the price Okabe pays for the time machine. So I love that it just pulls back from all of this and goes back to when Mayuri's grandmother died. It's not just extremely good pacing, although it is, obviously. It's because this is what Steins Gate is about. Standing with her grandmother's pocket watch in her hand and staring up at the sky. A watch. Time. Time goes ever on until it doesn't. There are two things human beings cannot comprehend. Infinity and nothing. Not the number 0, but the complete and utter absence of anything. The utter blackness of the void where nothing exists. Not even the concept of existence itself. These things are the essence of what we know as time. And Okabe's afraid of it. Afraid of what will happen if Mayuri should be taken away from him. Up that angel's ladder into the great beyond. And so he becomes the mad scientist, standing tall and challenging the world. Because he's hiding. Hiding from the world in the land of make-believe. Back when he and Mayuri were safe. Back when they were children. Without the slightest inkling of things like time and space and fear. But all of this fades away as Mayuri is, in an instant, taken away from him. He comes to, standing in a pool of his own sweat as the hourglass ticks away. Who keeps putting it there? Daru. Would he do that? I feel like he wouldn't. Would Kurisu? Mayuri? Maybe. It almost feels like the universe itself speaking to him. Just like Mayuri here, it's something completely inexplicable, yet it doesn't feel out of place. Putting down the hourglass, Okabe races around searching for Mayuri, and the world seems almost completely still. How could it not? Violently turning upside down and slamming on the brakes as he lurches into the past. It's quiet, but it's too quiet. Again and again, he runs into the same red light, the opposite of the frantic insanity he found a mere few hours ago. A few hours from now. This light is both reassuring and threatening. It says stop. It says the world isn't moving. It says this is a tiny, insignificant moment, frozen in the pathetic little thing you call time. And it says go no further. This is the end of your road, Okabe Rentaro. Whatever, whenever it is you're trying to do, you can't. You're stuck here, locked in this moment, and no matter how hard you try, you can't move forward. The world is at rest, Okabe Rentaro, but the one who cannot move on is you. But no matter how violently still the world is, Okabe's mind races on and on and on until the moment Kurisu calls him.
今日はもう解散だと言っただろう。早く帰っ。
端的に答えて。あんた、未来からタイムリープしてきたんじゃない？
The voice messages Mayuri and Ferris leave on their phones are a reminder that everything is right, but not right at the same time. They're not just normal, they're an unchanging constant, unaffected by this little loop he's trapped himself in. They're yet another reminder that this all exists in the ordinary. All of this is part of Okabe Rentaro's precious little life. But Kurisu's phone call isn't. She knows something big, something unfathomably horrible must have happened for him to actually have used the time leap machine. But her voice is so calm, so rational, and hearing it, Okabe calms down just a bit. He wouldn't be able to do it without Kurisu. He wouldn't be able to do any of it without Kurisu. Even here, with just this little phone call, she's able to lift him up to higher and higher places.
Okabe.
なんだ。
変なことはしないでね。
分かってる。
Every time, across every world line, she's there for him. He promises to solve her problems, but she's the one that solves his.
どうしたのよ。話って何？
助けてくれ。
Welcome back, by the way, to my series analyzing, in depth, literally every single episode of Steins Gate. If this is something you're into, do me a favor and step on the like button. I want to draw your attention to something you might have missed here. Every time he fails, every time the universe works against him, nothing that happens is spontaneous. What is his conversation with Suzuha about?
ねえ、お茶の水ってどっち？苗が買い物行くから送ってかなきゃなんだけど。
道なら交番で聞け。
She's looking for Nai, who shows up later in the subway. When he gets kidnapped and brought to the lab, this is the alley where they ran Mayuri over. Kidnapping or not, they were always here at this exact time. So when he ran here with Mayuri, this is how she died. Nothing that happens, nothing that goes wrong comes out of nowhere. It's all predetermined. It's not that the world reconstructs itself around the choices he's going to make. It's that every single choice he could make has already been accounted for. He can't run, not because there's nowhere to run to, but because he can only choose to run to dead ends. No matter how many times he runs, the answer is always the same. Because suddenly, he is no longer the hero. He is the princess locked in the Tower of Time, needing someone to save him. Mayuri is the one chasing Okabe through each world line because he's trying to save her, but he's the one that's lost. He's the one that needs saving. His body may be immortal in these 48 hours, but his soul becomes more and more lost every time he leaps. Mayuri says they're going to die here, but also 70 million years from now in Akihabara, because trapped in this little loop, time is meaningless. Your actions only have meaning because they have consequences. So, take away the consequences, and what do you have left but madness? You remember the first thing I said in this series is that this is the most important line in Steins Gate.
意志は連続していくんだって思う。だから大丈夫だよ。
おかりー。
No, wait. That's not right. This?
これは抗える者たちに対する神からの最後通告と言えよ。
おかりん。
Right. Okabe stands over the edge of infinity, and it's Mayuri that brings him back from it. I said that Mayuri is the single most important character in the story because she's what keeps Okabe grounded, and this is what I mean. The plot keeps getting away from itself with these high concepts of time and fate in the universe, and it's Mayuri that keeps the story grounded. They shouldn't have gone this far, and Mayuri knows it. Again and again and again, it's Mayuri that brings this story back down to earth. Because this story isn't about the universe, it's about the ordinary, it's about the mundane. It's about this, a bunch of weeaboos hanging out and playing board games and doing cosplay
And eating. Why did I eat more of this? However funny this joke was not worth it. Oh my god. Oh my god.
When Okabe says that they'll go public with the time machine, it's him backing down, him looking back over the edge of the universe that he's climbed all the way up to, and realizing that he's come too far and that he may fall. And as he turns to climb back down, he falls anyway because it's too late. He can't run because he's already lost. His soul is drowning in the ocean of eternity, and he needs someone to pull him out of it. And when that person reaches out and grabs his hand, he falls in love with her, more in love than he ever thought possible. Sometimes I look back on my favorite anime and I realize that I'll never, ever be able to experience it for the first time again, and I feel sad, like a piece of magic has disappeared from my world. But then I realized that even if I could Eternal Sunshine my memories of Steins Gate, there's no way in hell I would do that because every time I watch it, I find something I missed before. Every time I look, I find a little more magic, and I love it just a little bit more. When does Okabe fall in love with Kurisu? He becomes infatuated with her when she shows him that she's better than him. And again when she shows him that she's just like him.
そうだ、これぞまさに研究に身を置く者だけが漂わせる知性と恍惚のポーズ。
But I think it's when she shows him that she's not just his equal, not just his friend, but someone he can truly rely on, that he really falls in love with her.
無論だ。
What is the first thing he does when he time leaps? He tells the other lab members to leave because he doesn't want to put them in danger. One of his friends dies and he can't bear to see another get hurt. He tells them to leave and locks the door, sitting alone in the lab, the gentle drip of the tap being the only sound piercing the brooding silence he's trapped himself in. He sits there, alone in the dark, unmoving, staring at his phone as the numbers on the clock slowly ascend, once per minute, each minute an instant, and also an eternity, because in this moment, time is everything and nothing, all at once. They're just numbers on a clock, but they represent the endless void of the universe, wrapped up in these 4 digits as he sits there pondering the nature of existence. And he finds no way out because though he doesn't realize it, he can't do it alone. He needs Kurisu, and he doesn't realize it, but she does. And this is why it's important that Kurisu realizes her love for him first, because it helps her realize that not only does she need him, but he needs her too. So when she sees that he's time leaped, she reaches out to him every single time.
そんなところで何してる?
Again and again and again, she finds him lost in the sea of infinity and reaches down to take his hand. And he keeps pulling away, afraid of hurting her too, because he's in love with her. And he keeps running until he finally realizes that he loves her. Realizes that no matter how mad this scientist is, no matter how great the mighty Ho in Kyoma, there's an even greater, mightier, madder scientist waiting for him.
無論だ!
This is the moment he realizes that she truly understands him. She takes this goofy bit of his character and turns it into one of the most tear-jerking moments in the entire show. When he can't bring himself to be the mad scientist, Kurisu becomes it for him, knowing what it is and knowing what it stands for. And how does Okabe feel, knowing that this girl sees him for the man he really is? All we need to do to peer inside Okabe's heart is to look at Kurisu's face. We're not just looking at her expression. What we're seeing is Okabe's point of view. We're not looking at her straight on. We're looking up at her as she looks down on him. To Okabe, here, in this moment, she's beautiful. What we see is Kurisu's affection, but what we feel is Okabe's as he gazes upon the most beautiful girl in the world. And though this is just one Kurisu on one world line, throughout his journey, he realizes that no matter when, no matter where, no matter what world line he crosses, he always can and he always will be able to count on her. He falls in love with her anew every single time, and he realizes that he will always love her, no matter which Kurisu it is, because every single one of them is her. Every one of them adds up to a single Kurisu. And leading him back to the lab after hearing him pour his heart out, she lets him just a little further into hers and tells him about her innermost desire.
念のためキーワードを決めておきましょうか。私が今一番欲しいものはマイフォークである。マイスプーンはもう持ってるし。ってそこに興味を持つな。行くわよ。
They don't kiss for a few more episodes, but this is when they realize how in love each of them is. So when he time leaps, it isn't dramatic, it isn't emotional. She looks at him with bright eyes as he leaps into the past. This look isn't a farewell, it isn't a good luck, it's an I care about you. And as he opens his eyes and sees the world exactly as it was, exactly the same, this is nothing short of fucking brilliant writing, because the world hasn't changed, but he has. He's gained the love of Kurisu, and him gazing upon the lab, the world once at peace as Mayuri puts the finishing touches on her costume at the same moment the time leap machine is completed. It's saying that this is the start line. This is where it ends, but so too is where it begins. Everything ends and begins right here in this one single moment. And so after building and building and building this tense emotional climax, it's almost jarring how hard it cuts the tension in half. Cuts back to the silly shit when she refuses to believe him.
俺は5時間後の未来から来た。
バカじゃないの？はいはい。
この女殴りたい。
The tone of her voice is fucking perfect here, and it reminds us that these aren't heroes, they're just regular people dicking around. This is the funniest line in Steins Gate.
Hey master. I am math scientist. It's so cool. Son of a bitch.
Hilarious. But you probably don't realize just how deep this goes. You'll see this kind of foreigner character in a lot of anime. Case in point.
Hey! Sokuno boy! You got badge Hachiko getsta? Masaratan no Satoshi sono hito kana?
Now, while the Pokemon one was clearly voiced by an American, probably a black American by the sound of it, if it wasn't then they have an unreasonably talented actor on their hands, it still has the same fundamental problem, which is that this isn't how foreigners talk. What they do is speak in Japanese, but replace the simple words with English because that's about the level of English the average Japanese person understands. The obvious problem here, though, is that this is literally exactly backwards. A foreigner isn't going to replace the easy Japanese words with English, they're going to replace the hard Japanese words with English. Listen to this and see if you can spot what's wrong with it.
Oh, next challenger was cute だね。
チャレンジャーは私じゃないんだけど。
ではwho?
It's me だ。
Oh, you ga.
The other problem is that they for some reason usually speak in perfect grammar because apparently Japanese people can understand random English words, but for some reason can't understand incorrect grammar. Hilarious. So this literally never sounds like an American speaking English. It sounds like the Japanese version of a weeaboo. It sounds like a Japanese person trying and failing to use English, which is technically exactly what this is, but still. I don't know how this is such a common trope. How do Japanese people view this? To me, it's just so incredibly fucking stupid that it's funny, but that's because I'm laughing at the anime rather than with it. What the fuck do Japanese people see in this? Is Rawhide Kobayashi here supposed to be funny to Japanese people?
I am mad scientist. United States, Earth, and invade.
Oh, I'm joke. Wait. I'm a smart citizen. Do you understand? Do you understand?
One of the mysteries of the universe, I guess. Welcome back, by the way, to my series analyzing every single episode of Steins Gate. Speaking of broken English, I really need to show you the English language version of the Future Gadget Laboratory website because it's actually fantastic. I could show you the Japanese, but let's be real, you want to see the English. IR, Weeb, Rebelman. It even has a comment section where we get this hilarious gem. This site is so lame, you've got to be kidding me. I thought I went through a time warp to the 90s for a second there. Did you seriously machine translate this crap? Apparently made with really bad machine translation by Dadu in an attempt to reach the wider world for some reason. I have no idea why anyone in Japan would care, let alone the world. But there you are, I guess. Take the bamboo copter. When the latest AV equipment and traditional crafts of Japan is fused, barriers of the past and the future is disappeared. Aerial photography by no power has been realized. Video capture is a condition which is rotating violently, but does not mean that is a failure or nothing. We making no claim for this regard. Now, here's the thing, this doesn't sound like machine translation. This sounds like a Japanese person that doesn't speak English trying to sound cool. I have no idea why it wouldn't sound like actual machine translation, although maybe MTL 12 years ago actually did look like this. Does anyone know? Because this is like definitely off in like exactly the wrong way. IR, Weeb, Rabbleman. I feel like translation software would at least output the correct form of B here. The best ever masterpiece, which is making a possible of by all efforts combined of lab. Yeah, that for sure sounds like a Japanese person. Actually, it just occurred to me that they were using a translation website called Excite Sensei.
英語か。エキサイト先生にご登場願え。
And I was going to run this page through it to see what comes out, but in just the worst possible stroke of luck, Excite Sensei actually went offline as I was writing this. As in, Excite stopped running their translation service on October 31st, 2022. I'm writing this on November 14th. Bro, by the way, did you notice every single one of the future gadgets is for sale? Oh, I see. Moad's snake looks like a claymore, so not only is it a really great instant humidifier, it's good for decorating the house. Very practical. Special price, only 7,800 yen. What a steal. I guess they're nothing if not entrepreneurial, although it probably speaks volumes that they haven't sold a single one. Another thing I'm not sure whether or not is a joke is that you apparently order by fax. But like, this has to be a joke, right? No matter how backwards Japanese companies are, terminally online weeaboos would not use a fax machine. Or maybe this is just the only way to be taken seriously. I'm not actually sure. Before we move on, you might actually be wondering about the Japanese site, but it actually says the exact same thing, which is really weird. By which I mean it isn't just a supposedly machine-translated version of the site. Even the comment section is almost identical, with the same spam links to pornographic websites. And the only difference is the original comments are edited slightly to reference the machine-translated English, which is kind of a weird immersion breaker. Although I guess only if you can read both Japanese and English. Remember this comment? This is what it looks like in Japanese. So apparently the English version of the site was built by Daru, and speaking of things he built, I want to take a sec to appreciate him because I don't think anyone talks about him enough. Daru is kind of a superhero dude. I mean, think about it. He fixes a fucking time machine. What? Sure, he built it, but like 20 years in the future. How? I mean, it wasn't perfect, but also, who does this? What does Okabe build? A Dixie tube clock? I mean, cool, but in comparison, that's just sad. He didn't even do anything to it. Look at it. This is actually just a fucking breadboard. Did you notice this? I didn't notice this before. Lastly, I want to show you one more thing, and that's Mayuri's poster she's handing out because it's also hilarious in the exact same way as the website. It basically says, the dude wearing this pin is a kidnapper. Please help us bring him to justice. He could be your neighbor. He could be living in your area. He's hiding near you. If seen, contact this mail address. That's probably hers. That's just a really rough translation, but you get the gist. All of this horrible shit covered in really cutesy childish drawings. Amazing. If there's one word you'd use to describe Suzuha, it's cheery. But what we learn is that that's not really her, just a face that she puts on. Not for everyone else, but for herself, because it's the only way she can cope with CERN's dystopian future. I said that Mayuri is the pure and innocent trope, but it works because they used it in the only way it would actually work in the real world, special. And it's the same with Suzuha. She's cheery because it's a coping strategy. It's her defiance of the darkness she comes from. In the future, in 2036, happiness doesn't exist. It's, as John Titor describes it,
ディストピアとは共産主義が復活し生活レベルが18世紀に戻ったといえば分かりやすいでしょうか。
Now, this probably says more about the dude who wrote John Titor because, hello, fascism and rampant poverty aren't exclusive to communist regimes, but whatever. But basically, it's a shitty dystopia where everything is terrible. This is why she says shit like this.
どうかした？
気にするな。軽く拷問を受けただけだ。
なんだ、そんなの拷問のうちに入らないよ。
まるで本当の拷問を受けたかのような口ぶりだな。
そりゃ戦士だからね。
And this.
爆撃。
花火の中継だろう。
Obviously, there's no air raids or torture or anything like that in Akihabara. Okabe says shit like this ironically, but for Suzuha, it's very, very real. While it feels out of place in everyday life, where she comes from, when she comes from, this is her everyday.
またか。
何？ 死亡通知でも来た？
死亡通知？
いや。
So this.
まさかバイトというのは？
All of this.
まるで本当の拷問を受けたかのような口ぶりだな。
そりゃ戦士だからね。
It's just her way of dealing with the shitty hand she's been dealt. But we see it for the facade it is during the 2 times it drops. The first is when she sees Kurisu.
マキセ、クリス。
はい、この人は？
ブランカン工房のバイト。
Because she sees her as the enemy. She sees her as dangerous and puts up her guard. Before we get into the second time though, have you ever thought about the way Suzuha glares at Kurisu? Like, really thought about it. This is a really clever detail that I'm not sure everyone fully appreciates. She hates Kurisu because she's the mother of the time machine, even though that's literally the only thing she knows about her. This is some 1984 level shit, bro. Like, she doesn't know why Kurisu worked for CERN or any of her motivations, yet knows that she's evil. Even though Kurisu was very clearly forced to work for CERN, which we learned from the lab invasion, all she did was write the paper on time travel. It's a really subtle testament to the power of CERN that even one of the core members of the resistance believes the propaganda that it puts out. The second time we see Suzuha's mask come off is at the lab party.
迷ったら攻める。それが私のモットーだよ。
かかったな、小娘が。
We don't see this scowl anywhere else, but it's not because she's upset or because she's not having fun. Exactly the opposite. It's exactly because she's having so much fun that she can let herself do this. She doesn't have to put on this fake smile because she is a real one to wear. Because here, she gets to do all of the things she never could before. Play board games, screw around, be a fucking kid, eat pizza and cake, and Kurisu salad. Why did I do this? Oh god. Oh god, that's horrible. This is horrible. Why do I do this to myself? Oh, it's so horrible. So horrible. Oh my god. And that's exactly why it's only here that we see her able to get along with Kurisu. Because the reason she could never see Kurisu as a real person is because she never had the chance to have any friends. How could she see Kurisu as real when she doesn't know what real people act like? So, when she goes back to 1975, it's sad because she's giving up her first real friends, her first real chance to be happy. I keep saying that Steins Gate is about the beauty of the everyday. The everyday that gets taken away when Ferris wishes to bring her father back from the dead. The everyday that Mayuri feels disappearing as Okabe plunges into his battle with the universe. The everyday that is the price Okabe pays for all of the wishes he grants every one of his friends. And here, we get to see the beauty of the everyday from the perspective of someone who's never ever seen it. Someone who finally gets to experience the joy of the ordinary, only to have to give it up immediately as she travels to the past. So it's sad, but it's also happy because this journey is, for her, true freedom. Her friendship with the lab isn't normal, it was a necessary part of her mission. And while this doesn't make it not real, it's still not quite her own. It's tainted with the knowledge that it's a temporary happiness. But stepping into the time machine represents her chance to finally discover what real happiness looks like, because she isn't going back to war, she's going to an even more peaceful time. She sets off for the past, having learned the meaning of friendship and happiness, having learned all of the things that life is supposed to be about, knowing that she'll truly be able to start anew and live a normal life, knowing that it's finally okay to be happy and to be herself.
70年代だって悪くないよ。そこでまた君たちみたいな友達を作って自由に生きていく。
And the irony here is, it's her carefree enjoyment of exactly this everyday that is so crushing when she fails.
使命を忘れてただのうのうと生きてきた。許して、許して、許して、許して。もしも時間を戻せるなら、あの日の私を引き止めないようにしてほしい。こんな人生。
無意味だった。
Basically, all of the characters in Steins Gate are subversions of themselves. Suzuha is cheery because it's a mask for the darkness lying beneath, but her character as a whole is optimistic. Her character is about looking forward to a bright future. She comes back to the past to change that darkness she comes from. And again, when she steps back into 1975, it's to change the future. It's to erase the darkness. Her cheery smile is covering darkness, but it's actually showing us her eager optimism. Is Suzuha the stereotypical sunny waifu? Well, yes, but also no. But also yes.
I became the world's greatest RaiNet Battlers player is something I can claim because no one plays it. But you should, because it's awesome.
God, I know this is a virus.
Ah,
Damn, I knew what it is. Like, I knew it was one. All you do is move your viruses. I know your strategy. Oh, now he's boosted.
First, wait, this is a real game? And yeah, I mean, it might as well just be fictional because it's supposed to be this huge weeby esport, but it's actually an adaptation from some random board game from the 80s called Ghosts. But I'd be lying to you if I said this wasn't both extremely cool and a legitimately fun game, because luckily, there's actually an official version we can play that was sold at Comic at 80. Obviously, as the king of weeaboos, I had to buy an actual copy, but for those of you weeps who can't, there's an electronic version. I'll talk about where to get it at the end. So you might think of RaiNet Access Battlers as like kind of a cross between checkers and poker.
This is very interesting what I'm doing here. This is very interesting.
Shit. Which one is the virus? Would he boost the virus? That's exactly what I do. But maybe he would do the opposite. Shit. Would he do exactly what you do the opposite? Oh, fuck!
Yes! Dude, it's all just trickery.
Shit. Each player has 8 pieces, 4 link cards, and 4 virus cards, which all start face down. You take turns moving your cards across the board. If one of your cards gets to your opponent's server port, here, you can move it into your stack. If you move onto one of your opponent's cards, you capture it into your stack. You win if you get 4 link cards in your stack, and you lose if you get 4 virus cards in your stack. Oh, but see, now I have 2 link cards. All I need is 2 more. So if I can find your link cards, then I basically win. Put the link card in the corner, damn it. Fuck.
Yes. The way that you yell at it, dude, you're just like, it's in the corner. Like,
These can be any combination of yours or your opponent's cards. You can also spend your turn playing one of 4 different terminal cards. Boost allows your cards to move 2 spaces in a turn. It takes a turn to equip or unequip. Firewall places an obstruction on the board. Your opponent has to move around this while you can move through it. This also creates a safe space for your pieces on the board. It takes a turn to place or remove. Virus Checker turns one of your opponent's cards face up. It can only be used once per game. 404 Not Found swaps 2 of your cards and places them face down if they've been revealed by Virus Checker. It can also only be used once per game. Now which one's the link card?
oh my god.
So, big thanks to my friend Pat from Wires Don't Talk for helping me out with this video. He does analysis of music and games and shit. I also did a video with him on the worst anime of all time. I'll put a link to it at the end of the video, along with his channel, which you should also totally check out. I wasn't kidding about being the world's greatest player, by the way, so here's my crash course on strategy. You want to be aggressive. Here's why. Take a look at this game against Pat. I played aggressively and took out 4 of his cards, 2 link cards, and 2 viruses.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you as a friend. Don't do it. You bitch.
Your first reaction might be like, well, that means you're about even. But that's wrong because you can't just consider your own win and loss conditions. You also need to think about your opponent's. Pat has 0 link cards. To win, he can either take 4 link cards or give me 2 viruses. But I don't need to take his cards. My win condition is simple. Upload 2 link cards. Only 1, actually. I'll get to this point in a bit. Now, you might point out that I'm forced to play defensively because I can't take Pat's cards, but I don't. I have to play conservatively, but that's not the same thing as playing defensive. Pat has to play defensively because he can't just let my cards upload. I no longer need to take his cards to win, but he needs to take mine. Even though I can play conservatively and avoid taking his cards, until he starts taking mine, which he still has to be careful about, I have more agency because I have more cards on the board to move. By taking a lot of his cards, even if I take a couple viruses, I get to force Pat into the game I want to play. This game is very, very snowbally. So I think opening aggressively is just strictly the better way to play. You want to boost often and early in order to take your opponent's cards. It's okay to take the occasional virus because link cards are literally twice as important as taking virus cards, so if you can reliably take one of each, it's basically always worth it. Sure, you have to consider the risk of taking only viruses, but there's two things you need to consider. One, because it's like poker, this isn't a game you play one round of, you play several, adjusting to the odds in your opponent's play. And two, the other effect of playing aggressively is removing your opponent's cards from the board and giving you more room to upload, meaning taking on more risk early makes your later play far less risky. My standard opening has been to immediately boost one card across the center of the board. If Pat ignores it, I can choose to either start taking his cards or upload it if it's a link card. To stop it, he has two options. One, to take it, which is bad if it's a virus. Two, not to defend, but instead to counterattack across the board and force me to move other pieces so I don't just run away with complete control of the game. So now let's talk about the items. First, obviously boost is the most important. You might think having to equip and unequip boost is a huge handicap, but I'm almost positive that's wrong. You always want to have a card that's boosted. First, you make up for the time equipping and unequipping it if you move a boosted unit twice. The board is 8 spaces long. It takes 7 turns to move across without boosting. You will make up this time. And even if you move a boosted unit only twice, you don't just make up the time spent equipping boost. It's actually more valuable because boost also gives you more agency. You have far more flexibility in movement, and you can attack non-boosted cards when they can't attack you. And if you can force your opponent into taking your card, you don't even need to unequip it. If you're planning to move a card more than once, boost it. Now, obviously, once the game evolves into a state where you need to make back and forth decisions, you can't just be sitting there boosting a single card onto your opponent's side, but you should always have boost equipped on something because it gives you so much more agency. Again, a boosted card can attack non-boosted cards without stepping into range of being attacked itself. That is huge! Boost is basically OP. Boost, boost, boost. Next, the other reusable item is Firewall, which creates a safe space for you. This took a few more off-camera games with Pat to really figure out, and I think it's the difference between a good player and a truly great player. First, it's one of the counters to boost. A boosted card has to go around it, slowing it way down.
Oh shit, I can't, I can't move through that. I see.
I had to stop the boost somehow. Yeah, see, now I know what you got going on now. I'm playing defensively.
Put it by your upload zone, and your ability to defend basically doubles because not only do you obstruct your opponent's movement into an already narrow space, your cards are allowed to pass through it, creating a safe space for you.
This is the chess aspect right
here.
Yeah,
this is the chess aspect, okay.
Just like planning the movements.
But the counter to this is to actually use Firewall aggressively. Let's break down some advanced strategy. With Firewall, you can change your goal from being your opponent's difficult to reach server port to these squares in the middle of the board. Wait, what? I hear you say. Let me show you. With boost activated, you can upload from right here, meaning your opponent is going to want to defend this. To block your opponent's defense, put a firewall there. That's right, if you can put up a firewall here and move your link card there safely, you get a free upload. So then the next obvious step is moving your link card here, because if your card gets here safely, it can then freely jump to the firewall. In other words, getting your card safely here means a free upload. Now, there is a counter to this. Your opponent can put their firewall down to block you, but that isn't even that good because there are still other paths to both their upload port and this firewall you've set up. So they're leaving the rest of their board wide open just to block one of your attack routes. Again, being aggressive is basically a strict advantage. Now for the once per game consumables. Virus Checker turns one of your opponent's cards face up. Obviously helpful. Now, they can turn it back upside down with the other consumable, 404 Not Found, which switches 2 of your cards and turns them both face down. But 404 Not Found has other uses, so you might just want to concede the information when your opponent plays it. The best use is actually to switch positions. If you put a virus card at their upload and switch it for a link card, you get a free point. So again, we see playing aggressively gets rewarded.
Now which one's the link card?
Oh my god.
Now which one's the link card?
Oh my god. That was so well played, because like, oh man, what if, oh shit. You bitch!
Yes!
If you manage to upload only a single card, you only need to take half your opponent's link cards because you can swap a virus for your last link card and take the game. And get a virus here, swap it for a link card in safety, and then upload it for free. So again, this is why I said you want to aggressively remove your opponent's card from the board. You only need 3 points, and then you can use 404 not found for the last.
Tempting. He's tempting me with that card. Oh, I want to take that card so bad. I'm not falling for it. I'm going for the exit.
So that was a virus. I was right.
It was a virus.
I was right.
Only was viruses.
So you generally want to save your consumables for late game when information becomes more valuable. Because the start of the game is about mind gaming your opponent with your setup in order to take the first advantage by taking link cards or giving them viruses.
Good cards.
I'm not doing it. I'm not falling for it.
Oh my god.
I'm not falling for it.
Baby. All right, go ahead. You can upload it all you want. I know it's a virus.
Oh, it's a link card.
Is it? Oh! Oh, it is. Oh, my
I
god. Oh, I got a boost. I must boost.
Once you've narrowed down their cards, you can use your consumables to sniff out the rest.
Those are definitely your links. Those are your links. Are these your link cards? I'm gonna win.
Uh-oh.
Could you move your virus? I know you play.
Ah, it's virus.
Yes!
No! Yes!
I love this game. It's really simple, but the bluffing aspect of it gives it so much depth.
Which one of these is the virus? What do you move the virus away from it? That seems crazy. That's too crazy. There's no way you would do that. It's this one. Yes!
Oh, okay. Okay.
Alright, so now that I've completely sold you on this game, where to find it? Well, wait, first. Again, big thanks to Pat for helping me figure out this game. And again, you should totally check out the other video we made together as well as his channel. And if this video was totally sick, you should step on the like button. So there have literally been several people who've made working versions of the game, but the one I've been using, which is the only one that seems to be maintained and or finished, is from Italian programmer, I'm gonna fuck this up, Really Vito for Windows, Android, and iPhone. He's developing, publishing, and hosting the game, all for free in his spare time, so maybe even consider donating to his server cost if you start playing it. And if you want to just try out the game by yourself, there's a bot you can play against. It's really bad, but it'll help you get a feel for the game. It's super fun. Who knows, maybe if I ever try live streaming, I can do RaiNet Battlers.
I am only playing strategic, like just play slower, you just keep boosting. Yeah! Yes! Stop boosting! Play slow.
Okay, alright.
Almost every character in Steins Gate is probably autistic. Take a look at this.
アイザック・ニュートンと同じく IQ170 に生まれついたこの俺女よりも研究で
どう見ても童貞です。本当にありがとうございました。
Okay, so this is funny for several reasons. One of them is that Isaac Newton died a virgin, so when he compares himself to Newton, it's fitting because this dude was like legendary levels of autistic. He never had a lover and probably had zero interest in women, or men for that matter. And even if he did, his brain was way too huge for any of them. I mean, this is the dude that literally just invented calculus on a dare. When his university closed for a pandemic, he went and discovered several different properties of light. Like, he was maybe literally, and I do mean literally, the smartest dude who ever lived, and he was also the world's hugest virgin. So this...
女よりも研究で
どう見ても童貞です。本当にありがとうございました。
This is Okabe trying to one-up Kurisu with his knowledge of history, and Kurisu just takes it and fucking slam dunks him into the ground by calling him an autistic virgin. But let's not pretend Okabe is the only one with autistic traits. Actually, let's just back up a sec to make sure we're all on the same page. Think about what a very high-functioning autistic person looks like, and then see if this description fits any of the lab members. Extremely intelligent, socially awkward, very obsessive personality. Now, who does this remind you? Wait a second. Intelligent. Socially underdeveloped, obsessed. Oh dear God, this explains a lot. Welcome back, by the way, to my series analyzing in depth literally every single episode of Steins Gate. This is episode 18. So anyway, none of them have any idea what normal human conversation is supposed to look like. Wait, let me redo this. None of them have any idea what normal human conversation is supposed to look like. For one, this.
つーかそんな本よりやっぱこっちじゃね？
それはエロゲの攻略本だろ。
いいじゃん。腕組んでおっぱい肘に当ててんのよ状態とかエロすぎっしょ。ちくしょー！リア充のバカー！
God, I fucking love this anime. So, when Okabe goes on a date with Ruka, what do they do? Okay, here's what a normal person would do.
もしもし。ライト？
ごめん、待たせちゃったかな。
全然。それよりスペースランドなんて中学の時以来。楽しみ。しかも今日はライトと二人っきりだし。
And here's what they do.
無理をして高級店に入る必要はありません。普段の自分の行きつけの店で十分です。
They pull out a book on dating and study it. What's wrong with this isn't just that they're reading a dating manual, although that's obviously hilarious. The problem is that this book is all shit to impress a girl you don't really know. Okabe is going on a date with someone who knows him extremely well, who's in love with him, and more importantly, has never ever been on a date before. This book isn't that at all. The problem here is that none of them understands the context this book exists in. When he keeps doing all the gentleman shit wrong, Ruka wouldn't know. She has no idea what the fuck he's supposed to be doing. Okabe is the one that's supposed to know here. That's why it's so awkward, because she doesn't even know what he's trying to do. Sure, he's a virgin, but he's older than her and she's, well, you know, Ruka. She doesn't know what a fucking date looks like. So why exactly is he doing this? Because Kurisu tells him to. Because she wants to go on a date with him. Why do you think she calls this Operation Valkyrie?
オペレーションバルキリア開始よ。
なぜ北欧神話なのだ？
Because Valkyrie are the lovers of mortals that guide the souls of the dead to Valhalla, and so Okabe training to date Kurisu on another world line makes her like... No, kidding, I have no idea what this is about. I'm just talking out of my ass here. If you can explain this, let me know. Really think about what's going on here though, because the joke is a lot subtler and deeper than you might realize. They're doing this because Kurisu wants him to learn how to date. But the problem here is that she doesn't know how to date, meaning she doesn't actually want any of these things. She just thinks she wants them because that's what the book says, because she wants to be all normie and hand-holdy, lovey-dovey, cutesy-wootsy. Stop! If the book told her that a good date involves going to a cockfighting match, she'd probably believe it. Why do you think she knows this?
はい、ハンカチもどうやって使うか分かってる？
今でもあなたのことを待っています。
それは幸せの黄色いやつ。その偏った知識はなんだ？
お前も知ってるではないか。
Because she's read like every book on romance, obviously. Is this romantic? Sure, why the fuck not? Finding a normal person and asking them though would involve admitting that she wants to be a normie, which apparently is just as embarrassing as admitting that she's a weeaboo, so who knows what her deal is.
やはり書き込んでいたのはアットチャンネルか。今更隠したところで何の意味もない。
うつだ。
これからクリスティーナにはネラーの称号を正式に与える。
これ以上変な呼び名を付け出すな。っていうか内緒にしておいてよ。
I mean, think about it. Most of the characters in the show are women, but does she ask them? Does she ask Mayuri, hey, what kind of date would Ruka like? Does she ask Ferris, hey, no, wait, she wouldn't ask Ferris. But you know, she doesn't ask Mayuri, who is basically Ruka's best friend and also significantly less of a weeaboo. I mean, the joke is that Daru is the one whose knowledge of dating starts and ends at eroge, but who's the one that says...
っていうかそれ、フラグが立ったんじゃない？
フラグ？この戦いが終わったら結婚する。
それは死亡フラグだ。私が言ってるのは恋愛フラグよ。
Oh my god, you horny bitch. So what I really love about this episode is how it manages to take all the goofy shit that's been going on around Ruka and turn it into sincere emotional payoff. You know that whole thing about...
エルプサイココンガリ
コングルーだ。
すみません。もう言ってください。じゃないと僕泣いちゃいそうで。エルプサイコンガリ
コンクルーダ
エルプサイ
How on earth did you make that serious? What about the Daga Otoko Da thing?
だが男だ。なあ、ルカ子。
はい。
お前は俺のこと好きか？
尊敬してます。
だが男だ。
Why does this now make you want to cry? What the fuck? How did you do this? What did you do to me? This shouldn't be possible. Holy shit, this anime is so fucking good. This is Okabe's biggest character flaw.
4日前に携帯の機種変更したけど変えない方が良かったって自分に伝えたい。
直前に別のメールを打って送ったんだ。
If he considers someone a friend, he trusts them unconditionally. He doesn't even consider that Moeka might have lied to him about her D-mail until after he tries undoing it. Even though she betrayed him, even though she killed Mayuri because he made her a lab member, he made her his friend. Okabe lets both Suzuha and Moeka into the lab despite knowing nothing about either of them because he decides that they're friends and he loses almost everything because of it. Welcome back, by the way, to my series analyzing in depth literally every single episode of Steins Gate. This is episode 19. So it's a mixed bag of emotions when he learns that Moeka hanged herself in her apartment. So if there's one thing this scene tells me, it's that this is a great opportunity to give you a tour of a real Japanese apartment, and luckily, I happen to have one. It's my apartment. Holy shit. I didn't run out of material for this episode. You ran out of material for this episode. Fuck you. First, here's something you probably didn't know. Most Japanese apartments built around the 80s and 90s have really silly English names that don't make sense at all. Excellent House, Yangahaitu Le Grand, F's Flats, Sun Great. What happened to Royal Castles 1 through 49? I don't know. Now the real question is whether or not J Square was made before or after BTS. Her building is named Heights White. Yes, no, not White Heights. No, that would make sense. Heights White, obviously. I can't tell if this is an accident or if it's being deliberately ironic, but I'm not actually sure it matters. Before we get into the apartment tour though, take a look at this scene and see if you can spot what's wrong with it. That's right. It's the correct height. You might even notice that these cupboards are almost too tall even for me. You know how I know that? Because the company charged me $200 for a cleaning fee, but everything was dirty except for these cupboards. Even after everything, Okabe understands her. He looks upon her and he sees the same lost girl he met wandering around the streets of Akihabara because she says this. This isn't just stupid. This hurts him because despite everything, he considers her a friend. He gave her a place to belong, a real one, and he hates her even more for saying this. But he still pities her because he sees even more than before that she is exactly like him. Someone who just needs to be loved, someone who just wants some friends. Before we talk about what's missing in Moeka's apartment though, let's talk about my kitchen. And one thing you'll notice is that this sink is friggin' huge. Why is it so huge? I have this like rack here to like give me extra space, but this is how much counter space I have 2 hands worth of counter space. How is there twice as much sink as there is counter space? That's fucked. What's nice though is these 2 gas burners and this wall is like extremely easy to clean. So cooking here is pretty sick, except for this. I have no idea what happened here, but someone should probably get fired. Oh, and I almost forgot, I bought these little suction cup things at the 100 yen store. Very useful, super sick. I highly recommend it if you have one of these cool kitchen walls. Okay, let's move on. And the first thing I didn't actually see in Moeka's apartment is a bathroom. This is something you'll sometimes see where people go to public baths so you don't actually need a shower. Usually they'll at least have a toilet, so I have a feeling there's a door somewhere. If there is, it'll probably look something like this, which is the bathroom of the quarantine hotel I stayed at when I got to Japan 2 years ago. And here is my bathroom. First, First, super high quality toilet with a bidet and everything. Yes, Trash Taste is absolutely right about this shit. This is some fucking king shit. The other thing is you'll notice that the light is broken because it's the kind of light fixture where you have to replace the entire goddamn fixture when the light goes out. Just objectively horrible design. I told my landlord about this like 3 times. They still haven't fixed it. Probably because I'm a foreigner. Fuck you, I guess. I mean, I could like pay for it myself, but like I'm not gonna do that. So I just have my video light here for like light and stuff, and now, yeah, now it's like totally cool. This is bright as fuck. I just have my video light here for like lighting the bathroom if I need to take a poo in the night. So, why does Moeka decide to go with Okabe? Moeka looks at the marks on her hands where Okabe attacked her, and she realizes that she should help him find FB, because what she realizes is that her life isn't real. FB isn't real. Nothing about her life is real, and even she herself is barely real. She hangs herself because she feels so isolated and alone from the world. But those marks on her hands where Okabe grabbed her, those are real. Okabe is real, and if she's ever going to truly live, she needs to find out who FB is so she can live or die in the real world, not in this fake one she's constructed in this shitty apartment. Here is... Fuck. Okay. So here is my... You know what? Give me a second. Yeah, okay, this is like probably way better. Okay, so here's my shower, and one thing you'll notice is about the shower is that, you know, normally Japanese showers are like, they'll have the shower side and then like the bath side, so you can take a shower and have a bath and then rinse shit off and be like super duper clean. You can see the problem with this one is that the shower is in the bath, which kind of defeats the entire fucking point of this entire exercise. So like, again, this apartment is just kind of... Whose idea was like any of this? I have no... Fuck. Whatever, let's just... God damn it. The last thing I want to share with you about Moeka is something that gets lost in translation. When she says she doesn't want to meet FB, it's because she doesn't want to, and the most natural translation is disappoint FB. But what she actually says is disillusion, as in FB will be disillusioned with her if she actually meets her real self. Obviously, the subtle implication here is that she's the one that's going to be disillusioned if she meets FB, and deep down, she knows it. And so she hides here in her dim apartment, pretending that there's someone out there who really cares for her, instead of facing reality. Just like every other character, she's hiding from reality. Ferris and Ruka with their D-mails, but Okabe and Kurisu, and even Daru too. All of these weebs give in to their insecurities and hide from reality. And it's only when they muster up the courage to face it that they succeed and change their futures.
FB
嘘なの嘘
依存の次は現実逃避か
The only one who doesn't have to do this is Mayuri because she's so pure. Mayuri is always grounded in reality, and she's the one that keeps all the other members in it too. So the next thing you'll notice is missing in Moeka's apartment is any kind of furniture. I have like this table that like... I have this table and cushions for sitting on the floor and eating. I think she has a table, but that's like the only thing I saw. For me, I have, you know, a chair because I'm a Sigma male gamer, but you know, that's just me. And then obviously my desk and my shelf full of pornographic doujinshi. That's just Japan life, bro. That's just the way it is. As for the bed, I actually kind of like sleeping on the floor Japanese style, man. It's just, you've never tried it. It's like kind of nice. Maybe it's just because I'm really tall. But you know, you just feel like you have so much space and you like never have to worry about like falling off. You can just be all like fucking Sigma male gamer when you snooze, man. Normally you pack this up every day so it doesn't get moldy and shit. Obviously, I just have this out for demonstration purposes. But yeah, it's nice. And in the summer, it's all cool and stuff, man. Like don't let Big Bed tell you how to live. Floor gang for life, fam. Like, it's nice. Next time, we talk about the most horrifying scene in Steins. Thanks for your time, friends. And I'll see you next week. This is the most horrifying scene in Steins Gate. Mother! Steins Gate is so meaningful because it takes place in the beauty of the everyday. Watching these characters go about their lives, you get the sense that even if every single one of them died, almost no one would notice and life would keep going on as it always has. Well, 2 of them just died, and here we are. Nai wakes up and makes breakfast for her father like she would any other day, blissfully unaware of the horror going on just a short distance away, patiently waiting for someone who will never come. For her, this was a morning like any other. We never get a chance to see how this ends. All we see is this innocent little girl waiting for her father to come home. And all we can do is imagine her world being turned slowly upside down as she comes to terms with the truth of the world. For Nai, it doesn't matter if the world crumbles. It doesn't matter if the future is doomed. The world doesn't matter because to her, this man is her world, and without him, the world is meaningless. What matters to her is having breakfast with her father before running off to school. Steins Gate never, ever stops being personal because it knows that this is what's important. So, after Okabe sends that D-mail and looks upon the brown workshop, that's exactly what he sees. A day like any other. Nai and Mr. Braun happily eating ramen together, unaware of their fate that was, just moments ago, so near and yet so very far away. By the way, if 20 episodes into this series, I still haven't convinced you that the anime is by far the superior version of the story, please let me know what I'm doing wrong here, because seriously, dude, what, we get to see Okabe's inner monologue? We learn literally nothing from it that we can't from his or anyone else's actions. Sure, it's longer, but as I keep explaining in excruciating detail, despite being shorter, the anime's story and characters are far deeper and far more fleshed out. What else can I do to convince you? There's only so many times I can point these things out and just kind of stare at you and go, see, damn. Welcome back, by the way, to my series analyzing in depth literally every single episode of Steins Gate like some kind of lunatic, is what I've been saying, but at this point, the only thing holding me back from the brink of insanity is the number of likes each video gets. So, dear God, please help me out and step on the like button. Anyway, so that's why, when Kurisu saves Okabe, they still have the lamp party. Daru, Mayuri, and even Suzuha are all gathered here eating pizza while Okabe and Kurisu discuss the plan to save Mayuri's life right in front of her. It's a reminder that this, Okabe's life, all of the events of Steins Gate don't exist in a vacuum. They exist among the ordinary. They aren't saving the world. They're protecting it from what's going on right in front of them. Because this is the most fucking beautiful thing in the world. So when Mayuri says,
どうしたの？なんだか最近全然オカリンとお話ししてないような気がするなって。
It's because that's what she's lost. For Okabe, he's saving her, but for Mayuri, she's lost him. She's lost what makes him so special. She's lost her best friend. The price Okabe pays for his time machine is the everyday that each of the characters shares.
バカは風邪ひかねえって言うけどな。
あ、実験に使う道具を探し回ってるみたいで。
実験ね。What
Mr. Braun is describing here isn't anything special like money or fame or anything out of the ordinary. What he's describing is the unbridled happiness of the mundane. And when he asks Nai, when he scoffs at Okabe and goes,
で、何の用だ? 早速値上げした分の家賃6000円払いに来たってか? おいおい、そこはおめえ1000円増えてるじゃないですかって突っ込むところだろ。
Oh, how blissfully unaware they all are. So speaking of family, think about what Moeka is doing here. How does Mr. Braun fool her? He pretends to be a mother to her. That is maybe the single most normal thing in the world. Literally just having a mom. So Moeka has a special kind of loneliness where she allows herself to be deceived because she doesn't have the most basic happiness. She has nothing. No one. All she ever wanted was to be loved, to have somewhere to belong, for someone to tell her that she's special. And so she let herself be deceived by Mr. Braun, even though she knew she was being deceived, just so she could pretend a little bit longer. So this... When Moeka apologizes to Okabe, it's because she realizes how pointless this all was. And she apologizes because she realized that that's what Okabe gave her, a place to belong. And she threw away this real family for a mother she knew was never even real in the first place. And he hates her for it. So when Okabe's world comes crashing down and we see this...
お前が作ったタイムリープマシンの出来はガチだった。って、
当然でしょ。
それに。
何よ。
This is love. Here, Okabe looks upon Kurisu, realizing how far he's come and realizing he would never have made it so far if it weren't for her, and he realizes he loves her. Okabe's story is one of bitter irony, that this journey is what's made him fall in love with her, and yet this journey is what kills her. See these pornographic Steins Gate doujinshi? I'm making this video as my excuse for buying all of them. And by all of them, I also mean all of these. And also these. I may have a problem. Welcome back to my series analyzing literally every single episode of Steins Gate, by the way. I've been rattling my brain trying to figure out what to say about episode 21 because all they really do is go to Comiket. But then I realized that's exactly what's so important about it. Steins Gate is about the beauty of the everyday, and episode 21 is about the characters coming to terms with the loss of it. Kurisu, literally, as she sits in the stairwell and ponders her own mortality. But also Mayuri and Okabe as they struggle to enjoy their time together at the biggest event of the year, with the ghost of time travel hanging over their heads. So, in the spirit of Comiket, and instead of lining up for hours and hours just to buy a bunch of pornography because Jesus fucking Christ, dude, I thought we'd just skip right ahead and show you the doujinshis. And by that, I mean we are still gonna be taking a look at some Comiket footage, as well as something even more obscure and interesting, which is the Comiket catalog. And no matter what you're imagining this thing to be, I need to brace you for what I'm about to show you, because this thing is insane. Yeah, this thing is literally the size of a phone book. Here's something you might not have realized. Comiket is a goddamn nightmare. What, you thought you could just show up and browse through and pick out whatever has the hottest waifu on the front? Hell no, Comiket is way too huge and busy for that. All the good ones will be sold out by the time you find anything worth reading. No, you need one of these. You'll notice what's helpfully included at the front is a detailed floor plan along with a notepad for everything you plan to buy, because Comiket isn't so much a market as it is a competition. You open this up and you plan. You line up for like 10 hours before it opens to get a good place in line, and then you make a mad dash for whatever table is selling the hottest Steins Gate doujins. Buy them, and then the next, and the next, and then maybe you can take a sec to browse everything, except no you can't, that took 6 hours and now everything's gone and the place is closed, idiot. Let me show you this news footage of one gaijin's journey through Comiket. The first comic you wanted to buy, sold out. Sad. The second, the artist took the day off. Double sad. But finally, at his third stop, he got a chance to buy some doujins. And that's literally it. This isn't to say Comiket is boring per se, just that literally all it is a place to buy the hottest indie comics. Hottest as in both. There's porn, you get it. Wonder why we didn't go to Comiket for this one? Yeah, this is why, because the real Comiket experience isn't the hordes of sweaty weirdos, but the fucking catalog itself. I think they stopped printing these and mostly went digital, so I got one I knew would have Steins Gate shit in it. So, here's what I don't get about this. It literally does not tell you how everything is organized. Oh sure, it has an index for every circle listed here. A circle in Japan is like a club or collaborative group, but that doesn't tell you anything about what you're buying unless you already know whose comics you want. Like, what the hell does Gizzle or Sixbox write? I don't fucking know. Props to the guys that just named their circle the sound 5 times so as to not get lost in the sea of doujinshis though. That's a 5-head move if I've ever seen one. I mean, it is organized. Here's the Haruhi section, here's Steins Gate, here's the other Steins Gate section. I'm assuming the difference is that one of these is pornography, but I'm not actually sure. Here's the train section. What, are you surprised that there's 2 literal pages of train zines at Comiket and 6 pages of Fate doujins? I'm not. What maybe should surprise you though is that this is just one of 3 days. I cannot overstate just how huge an event this is. Look at all these weeaboos. Now look at this. This is like 2 hours after the event opened and there's still a never-ending lineup. If you're a Comiket virgin, do not go on day 1. Just do not. So presumably, you'd look for your favorite Steins Gate doujin author, and then the tables around it would also be Steins Gate doujins. What if you're looking for something super obscure that only one person might be writing about? Honestly, I have no idea. You're fucked, maybe. I mean, there seems to be some kind of general organization, comics, novels, games, cosplay, porn, trains again. I just think that's hilarious. So presumably there's some way to search for it, but either I'm a massive idiot or it actually just does not tell you how it's organized. And now it's time to show you my favorite doujinshis, by which I mean I obviously cannot show you my favorite doujinshis, so instead we're going to be taking a look at the most obscure doujin I own, which is a collection of minigames based on each character called Steins Game. And by collection I mean apparently both of the discs I managed to find were actually demos with only a couple of the characters, and I can't find the complete version. It was available to buy online years ago, but now it's not. I managed to find the lead programmer, but either even he doesn't have a copy anymore or wasn't willing to share it with me for some reason. So what we have is less than half of the game, plus footage of the Moeka game uploaded to Nico Nico. I looked fucking everywhere for this, so if someone actually has the full C81 version, please let me know. The ones I have are the Suzuha game, where you have to steer Mr. Braun away from Okabe as he goes to the 42-inch CRT and does something, all the while collecting Nai tokens and making sure to avoid crashing him into the CRT walls. The Mayuri one, you collect chicken and bananas and avoid being hit by cans of Odin. But my favorite out of the three has to be the Ruka one, which is a simple pattern matching game where you follow Okabe's instructions with the demon sword Samidare. Not that any of these games are actually deep, but they're all fun little games with what is clearly a lot of love for each of the characters. So this was a fun distraction from what I can only describe as mountains and mountains of pornography. Maybe we'll revisit this one, but in the meantime, look forward to next week's episode where we talk about how Steins Gate taught me the meaning of life. This is what Steins Gate taught me about life.
ねえ、世界線が変わるってどういうことなんだろう。無数の世界線に別の私がいるかもしれない。その意志がつながって自分という存在があるのかもしれない。それって素敵だと思わない？
No, not Kurisu's speech about infinity, but actually what comes next.
Okabe!
The existential question at the heart of any story like Steins Gate is, if there are infinite world lines, infinite versions of ourselves across the infinite infinity of the universe, why does our narrow, singular experience even matter? What Kurisu teaches us is that if we don't know what happened to the other world lines, if they're all merely possibilities, then what matters isn't the universe, it's our perspective. It matters not despite our narrow experience, but rather because of it. Each of our lives are valuable, not because they're unique, but because they're here. If you'll let me be a little fucking pretentious for a second, I want to bring up this quote from Shakespeare. Out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and fruts his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and theory, signifying nothing. Life itself is meaningless. It's short, stupid, and above all, utterly insignificant. But what Kurisu is giving us here is a counterpoint to all of that. Sure, life is ultimately meaningless. We are, no matter how you look at it, a trivial speck in some empty corner of a vast, empty universe. But that doesn't matter. When Kurisu comes running back to the lab, it's because this experience matters. Maybe there are infinite Kurisus across infinite world lines. Maybe there aren't. Maybe infinite Okabes and infinite Kurisus share infinite kisses across the infinite reach of time and space. But who's to say? None of them matter because what matters is this Kurisu and this Okabe in the here and now. In this world line, in this lab, this Kurisu needs to tell this Okabe that she loves him. It's not that we exist that matters, it's that we live that does. And that's why Kurisu's pride cannot let her live when Mayuri's life is in danger. It's not her life that matters, it's how she lives that does. To have lived, loved, to have experienced the joys of being alive, that is what gives our existence meaning. 100, 1,000, 10,000 years from now, almost none of us will be remembered by the sands of time. But that isn't what's important. The past, the future, to us, do not and will never exist. What matters to us is the here and now. And isn't that fucking beautiful? Welcome back, by the way, to my series analyzing, in depth, literally every single episode of Steins Gate. This is episode 22. People often talk about Mayuri's slap, but I like this one just as much.
もうそんなもので心が壊れたりしない。何度繰り返そうが同じ。
When Kurisu says that it's only by working together that they've come this far, it hits Okabe so much because he knows how true it is. He can't do anything alone. It's always been her. It's Kurisu that's brought him this far. All of it. Everything he's done, everything he will do, it's all thanks to Kurisu. There is no one in the universe like her. It's this melancholic little moment, the joy of love, yet the heartbreak of having to say goodbye. It's the juxtaposition of the happiest and saddest moment of his life all at once, and it's fucking beautiful. And so it's here in this episode that time seems to stretch on forever while at the same time coming to a complete stop. Huddled together in the dark stairwell, Okabe and Kurisu seek shelter from the rain, desperately wanting to leave this moment behind while wishing it would never end. So when Okabe runs out into the cold rain, back to the lab, it's not just the traffic signals that have come to a standstill this time, but the world itself, the universe, Okabe, time, all of it seems perfectly still. And yet, time marches on as Okabe runs back to the lab because this stillness, this happiness with Kurisu is only temporary. Time only means anything because it moves ever on. But just for an instant, in this one moment, it's okay if it does not, as the world somehow becomes even stiller when Kurisu grabs this man and kisses him. And as Kurisu stands there and picks up the pieces of this broken man, we hear again the drip, drip, drip of the faucet, reminding us of the stillness of this moment in time, caught up in the inevitability of the universe.
Mayuriを助けて。
Before, we heard it when Okabe was sitting alone in the lab, contemplating Mayuri's fate, stuck between 0 and infinity. And here we hear the same dripping of the faucet, the same stillness, the same infinity, only this time, he's not alone. And it's all the more painful because of it. So despite the stillness of this moment, Kurisu laments the sudden passage of time, because it is, and yet isn't, moving. That's the thing about time. A single moment can be an instant or an eternity, depending on your perspective.
今だけはアインシュタインに文句を言いたい気分ねえ岡部。時間は人の意識によって長くなったり短くなったりする相対性理論ってとてもロマンチックでとても切ないものだね。
And here's what I love so much about Steins Gate, besides the 50 million other things. It's deeply, fiercely intelligent, and yet this only makes it even more human. The observer is a fundamental property of quantum mechanics. It's a fundamental property of the universe. Time in this episode flows by so slowly, and yet so very quickly. And so that's why when they finally part ways, when Okabe sees her off at Akihabara Station, Kurisu throws that bottle of Dr. Pepper, and then the instant Okabe turns around, she disappears without a trace into the morning. And as she leaves, we gaze upon the world of Akihabara and find it so still and empty, as if, again, time has come to a complete stop. Come to a world where only the two of them exist, and yet Kurisu doesn't. It's a world with only two of them, and in it, Okabe is alone. So when Kurisu barges into the lab, this one moment as Reading Steiner activates, as Okabe fades across world lines, seems to stretch on forever. Time in this episode is all things. It's slow, it's fast, and yet it's completely and utterly still. And this right here is the perfect ending. The girl is saved, the world is at peace, everything is returned to how it should be. And Okabe standing there with a gaping, Kurisu-shaped hole in his heart is when he most needs the mad scientist, when he most needs to be Hyo and Kyoma. But it's here that Kyoma dies. Steins Gate ends with the death of Hyo and Kyoma. a casualty of the war of the time machine.
王院京馬が死んだように電話レンジもまた死ぬべきなのだ。
Because none of this really had to happen. She was always dead. This heartbreak is merely the consequence of playing with time, and what the universe has left him with is a ghost. It's a melancholy, sad, perfect ending to maybe the greatest love story of all time. And yet, it somehow manages to take perfection and turn it into something beyond perfection. Turn it into something absolutely legendary. Here's why Steins Gate Zero shouldn't exist. All throughout the story, it's Mayuri that's kept Okabe grounded in reality. He's in love with Kurisu, but Mayuri is the one that holds him down to earth. Again and again and again, Okabe battles the universe and it nearly breaks him. And here, after all he's done, after how far he's come, after he's put an end to it all in the final battle of Ragnarok, he decides to fight just one more time in one last clash against infinity, and it completely shatters his soul as he plunges over the edge of the universe. And Mayuri grabs him and pulls him back up as she slaps him right in his stupid fucking face. Because Okabe would never give up, and Mayuri knows that. She doesn't understand anything he's doing, but she understands exactly who he is. And he's not someone that would just give up.
バカ言うな。俺が何回何十回失敗したと思ってる。
Mayuri knows that this wouldn't break Okabe. In fact, future him says exactly this.
その辛さが俺に執念を与えた。いくつもの世界線を旅してきたからこそ。 クリスを助けたいと思うお前はそこにいる。
This is who Okabe is. Pain doesn't make him weaker, it only makes him stronger. And so when Mayuri slaps him, it's a wake-up call. It's a taste of the energy, of the pain that drives him forwards from the one person who knows him, no matter how down and defeated he is, to the real Okabe sitting right in front of her.
オカリンは途中で諦める人じゃないよ。マユシーは知ってるもん。
Mayuri doesn't understand much, but she does understand him. She understands the human heart. She understands none of the complex things in Steins Gate, but 100% of the simple things. She understands love and compassion and truth and honesty and goodness. Mayuri is the one he saves because she represents the beauty of the everyday and all of the things that make life worth living. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Okabe and Mayuri are the yin and yang of this story. Okabe, time and time again, reaches out into the universe, and Mayuri is the one that holds him to Earth, making sure he never gets too lost, circling the shadows of infinity. Why do you think he does this at the end? Stardust handshake? Mayuri's signature move? Do you think it's a coincidence? I don't fucking think so. Compare this with the very first episode. Mayuri is the core of the story, and it's their relationship that holds the world of Steins Gate together. So for all those people who saw my Steins Gate Zero video and were like, oh, Okabe being emo isn't stupid, he's sad. Of course he would be. You're the one missing the point, so-called king of weeaboos. No! He wouldn't. He would not just be sad and emo like this. Uh-oh. There is no world in which Mayuri does not slap him. And there is no world where he just completely gives into this pain. Pain makes him stronger. Mayuri knows this, he knows this, and we know this because it's stated almost fucking verbatim in the episode. If Okabe started cutting himself, would you say this is completely out of tone with the character in the story? Or would you write it off as OMG sad because if it says Steins Gate on it, then it must be okay? Hey, weeaboo! Sure, there's a world line out there that creates this dystopian future, but it doesn't have to happen like this. And it definitely doesn't have to happen with the single most boring character in the world wearing the skinned carcass of Okabe. Oh, I have a bad feeling about this. This does not mean you're not allowed to like it. I don't give a shit. You can like whatever you want. I don't know why people are so uncomfortable with the idea that it's okay to like something that's bad. But just because you like it does not mean it isn't bad. I like Future Diary, and it's not just bad, but like embarrassingly bad, but me liking it does not somehow make it good. Future Diary, yeah, this can't possibly end well. No part of this is what the characters of Steins Gate would do, and that's why I said it feels like poorly written fanfiction from people who don't understand Steins Gate. Because every part of this just butchers the characters and the story so they can shove terrible fan service on our faces. And here we go. We seriously need to stop this. We need to stop pretending that just because we like something means we have to take every bit of bullshit rammed down our throats by any company that smells enough dollar signs. Okay, let's just let him finish. I know you can do this. If Star Wars fans eventually got there, so too can you. I mean, I don't know how it took so long. Rogue One was like literal orders of magnitude worse than Episode 9, what with being the literary equivalent of edgy Sonic the Hedgehog fanfiction written by a 12-year-old who paradoxically does not know how computers work. But they eventually got there, so too can you. Oh sure, compare your viewers to Sonic fans, that'll go over well. Okay, I guess when I said I don't care what you like, I lied. I don't care what you like as long as it's something original, but liking shit like this isn't liking a story. It's sucking off a pathetic cash grab from whatever fuck-off company that catches the scent of money, tainted with the blood of whatever franchise they're about to murder. And I wouldn't give a shit about murdered franchises, except that every bit of wank like this means one less potential Steins Gate in the world. Fuck. Are we done yet?
Wait, have you been here this whole time?
Okay, Weeaboo, what did we say about gaslighting our audience?
We said to do it.
We said don't do it.
We said don't do it.
And why did we say don't do it?
Because it's just a fucking anime?
Because it's just a fucking anime.
But...
So then what the fuck?
Because it's written like bad fanfiction and its only real merit is terrible fan service.
So then tell me, how many Steins Gate doujinshi do we have right here?
I mean, not that many.
Last time we had this talk, you had what, 5?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right.
And pray tell, about how many is this?
I mean, maybe like 20.
Okay, let's get this straight. You have 20 different pornographic fan comics on your shelf, and you're sitting here complaining about poorly written fan service that feels like fan fiction. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess that's about right.
So then, tell me what the difference is.
Well, for one, you can't really jerk off to Steins Gate Zero.
You're telling me the difference between this and Steins Gate Zero is that one of these is literally pornography.
I mean, when you put it like that.
So then what?
See, it just feels like a cheap cash grab from people like me.
And what exactly is the problem with that?
Because existing solely to make money is the antithesis of art, which is, you know, the entire point of my channel.
Oh, and they just gave Steins Gate away for free. Is that what happened?
Well, at least it was made with love.
Brother, if you think this was made with love, then there is something very fucking wrong with you.
No, it's different. This celebrates the characters. Steins Gate Zero undermines them.
Oh, really? You think Kurisu would just sit there jilling off in the lab?
Well...
Okay, just admit it. You're drawing the line here, not because of anything it is, but because of how other people see it, and that makes you feel superior.
I mean, I think that's a little oversimplified.
Admit it. You're a capitalist sheep, just like the rest of them. Say it. Say it!
I'm a capitalist sheep! Oh God, fuck me! You know, one really weird idea I keep seeing being floated around is that Okabe somehow deserves the suffering he gets. And this is just wrong on so many levels that I just want to unpack it and then talk about why the ending, which she does deserve, is so goddamn perfect. Okabe is never ever anything but good. Really think about it. When they get to testing the phone wave, name subject to change, he decides winning the lottery is the best way to objectively test it. And all the girls berate him for being so greedy, but when it comes to the actual money, he backs out of first prize. And he backs out of second prize too. He settles on third prize, which is like $1,000, and then Ruka just screws that up. This is not even the opportunity to be bad. Who gives a shit if he wins the lottery? What, he's gonna cheat someone out of randomly stumbling upon a huge amount of money that they didn't earn either? Who cares? But he doesn't even do this because he still feels wrong taking money that isn't his. This is the
only time Okabe even considers doing something that could be considered wrong, and yet he would never ever follow through with it. So when people claim that he deserves his suffering, that is fucked up on so many levels. But wait, you say, he was screwing with the universe and ignoring the consequences. And yeah, he was, but this isn't his just desserts. This is what we call tragedy, for 3 reasons. 1, he did it for his friends. Everything Okabe does is to try and make his friends' lives better. While he can occasionally be kind of a jackass.
幼馴染であっても金は貸さん。お前に今人生の厳しさを教えてやろう。
At his core, he's basically selfless. Instead of using the time machine to serve his own ends, he only uses it for the people around him. Again, as we see with the lottery, he barely has the capacity to even consider using it for himself. 2, and this kind of ties into the first one, he's a scientist. That's just what scientists do. They take things and they go, what would happen if we did it like this? And now we have computers and medicine and Pringles and all the good things that science brings us. Kurisu is the exact same way. Daru, too, to a lesser extent. They're all spellbound by their own sense of curiosity. Not that they don't fuck up, because they obviously do, but this isn't malice, this isn't something they deserve, this is tragedy. And 3, those last 2 reasons don't even matter because the universe itself turned on him from the moment he and Daru sent the first D-mail, which they did by accident. All they did was hook up a cell phone and a microwave because they thought it'd be funny if they could use their phones to heat up chicken. That's funny, right? I mean, I think it's funny. Everything that happened to him happened not because of anything he did or wanted to do, but because the events of Steins Gate were fated to happen. See my video on episode 10. Welcome back, by the way, to the very last episode of my series analyzing, in depth, literally every single episode of Steins Gate. Well, we might do the epilogue. Again, I'll put a link to the epilogue video at the end. Before we get to the ending, though, I just want to talk about a couple things going on here with Kurisu. Like this.
なんだいきなり。なんだではない。あなたのタイムマシン理論はなんだ。
Kurisu doesn't just show up to Dr. Nakabachi's lecture. When it starts, she's just standing there outside, looking at the sign and deciding whether or not she should come in, and she only does when Okabe makes a fool out of himself. I mean, how did her father know to meet her upstairs when she clearly didn't talk to him at any point during or after his lecture? She must have arranged to meet him beforehand. So, the questions here are, does she go in because Okabe's disrupting this conference like a fucking moron, or because she's curious about him and what he said earlier, or both? And is the question of how this man who just ran upstairs a few moments ago is suddenly raving like a lunatic in a room full of people part of it? Food for thought. This probably isn't as complicated as I'm making it out to be though, so here's a few more. Kurisu wrote the paper on time travel just to impress her father, who grew to hate her because she kept proving herself smarter than him. Yet, here she's produced the best paper on time travel ever written, and she thinks it's going to make him like her? For a genius, she sure can be a fucking moron sometimes. But I guess that's just who Kurisu is. When she looks for something, she can't help but find answers. What was she gonna do, write a shitty paper? That was never gonna happen. How else would she make him love her again? The only way she'd actually do that is by humiliating herself as a scientist, by stooping down to his level. But the thought of doing that would never ever occur to her. The only thing occupying her mind is the search for truth, and she's far too smart to miss it. It's this amazing paradox of utter genius and amazing stupidity that drives her sense of curiosity. Here's another reason why curiosity is tragedy. Here is this brilliant girl that only wanted her father to love her, and now because of her, a man got stabbed. She's only ever done everything right, and now look at her life. Her only crime was curiosity, and yet her life and death lies in the balance of the universe. And this sounds weird to put into words, but there's a beauty to Kurisu as she collapses unconscious here. She seems so pure and innocent, and yet so magnificent. I said in episode 10 that every character deep down knows how things are meant to be. And here we see this again as Kurisu lies face down in a pool of Okabe's blood. Looking at her lying there so peacefully, he realizes that finally all is right in the world and that everything is exactly how it should be.
これは間違いなく俺が見たクリスだ。
So now let's talk about the ending shots. I love every part of the messy lab. It shows us that this is a real place occupied by real people. Everything in here has been drawn in intentionally. The computer, the couch, the upa cushion, the table. Everything here has a purpose. Not necessarily to Okabe in the lab. They probably got almost all of this shit used, or let's be honest, free. But drawing it all in helps build a complete picture of who these characters are and what kind of life they live. And finally, we see all of the characters getting the ending they each so deserve. All each of them ever wanted was to be loved, and any bad thing any of them did was to serve this end. We see Moeka and Mr. Braun living in peace. Moeka finally with somewhere to belong, and Mr. Braun living a peaceful life with his daughter. We see Mayuri and Daru looking forward 8 years into the future to the appearance of lab member 008. We see Fennis doing fetish things like always. And we see the star-crossed lovers, Okabe and Kurisu, once again brought together by the hands of fate in front of the place they first met. The one place that started it all, in the heart of Akihabara. The pins aren't just a mark of friendship. The broken pin, that was a sign from the universe that something is wrong with it. And the complete pin, created by Okabe, is a symbol of everything being right with it. When he leaves a pin with each of the lab members and none of them really know why, that's exactly the point. Because there's beauty in the unknown. The Steins Gate world line is one without time travel, one with an unknown future. So it's a mark of friendship, but also a mark of things to come, whatever they might be. The future is completely unknown, but this is the one thing they do know, that everything is exactly how it should be, and that is why the lab will never change. And all of this is exactly what's so important about Okabe and Kurisu's reunion. Despite not knowing what the future holds, they both knew this meeting was fated to happen. Okabe speculates where Kurisu is, where the universe might have taken her. But the reason he was wandering around Akihabara, the reason both of them were wandering around Akihabara is because, deep down, he knew he would find her here. And so too did she. Because this is how things are meant to be.
未来のことは誰にもわからない。だからこそこの再会が意味するように無限の可能性があるんだ。これがシュタインズゲートの選択だよ。